Good afternoon to all the participants. We'll be beginning in a few minutes, in 1 to 2 minutes. So till then, you all are requested to hold on tight. Thank you so much.
Audible, guys.
Yes, sir, you're audible, but there's like a network, like there's some disturbance.
Um, Is this better? I mean, if I take out the headphones?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. Actually, the thing is, there is other noises around, which is why I was hoping that I'll use this. But anyway, is everyone like sort of online, or is anybody in college as well?
We are connecting online with everyone. Yeah.
So everyone is at home, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Priya, you can start.
Can everyone turn on the videos? I mean, it'll be easier for me to sort of see.
Actually, it is restricted for the participants.
Okay.
We'll be connecting with them like after the session for the question Q&A. Priya.
Good
No,
afternoon,
but just for
panelists.
a second, ask everyone to turn on because I'd like the screenshot of I think 107 participants, right? 111.
Uh, yes, sir. But actually, I think in this version, I think it will be restricted for them to switch on. Like they have to
Anyway,
like,
so whenever everyone
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of comes in, I'd like that screenshot because then I'll use that for a post. Yeah.
sure,
So
sure, sure. We'll provide you with that.
if you can do that right now, as many people on screen, 103 or I think it's like increasing 120 now. Maybe it'll go to like 200 or so. So just have that because
At the
that's
end of the
something
session,
that's
we'll do it, sir.
yeah.
Yeah. Priya.
May I begin?
Actually, the participants are still coming in. So
We'll wait for 2 more minutes. So shall we begin now? So you are on mute. So you are on mute.
I'd asked you to stay because I thought, the number of people is still increasing, that's why. I mean,
So
you
it's
won't
fine. I
start.
think people can join in between the session. I think that not be the problem. I
No,
think
no, I mean,
actually we
that's
have a
fine,
limited
guys,
time slot.
because see, it's actually, if it was increasing, like this is literally increasing, tuck, 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 tuck. So I'd rather when it stabilizes, because, I don't want half the people to miss out the introduction. Because
So
usually,
actually, the session will be recorded and we have a limited time slot. So
okay,
after
how
that,
long,
yeah,
how long do we have?
we have till 2:50.
250. Yeah, that's a long 250.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, fair,
yeah.
fair enough. So yeah, you can begin.
Good
But make sure
afternoon,
that there's a
Vanan.
screenshot of everything, like get everyone on the screen
Sure,
and take a
sure,
screenshot, then send it to me. Yeah.
sure.
You are Shambhav, is it? Sambhav.
No, sir, I'm with it. Sambhav is our team member who is
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, one and all present here. I am Priya Kapoor, the host of today's session. Feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all present here with us for the FINVERSE 2022, organized by NIVESH, the Finance and Investment Cell, Department of Commerce, Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi. We appreciate your presence at this difficult time. We would like to extend a special warm welcome to our guest of honor, Mr. Ajay Chaturvedi, sir, who has joined us today. He is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Harva, Harnessing Value of Rural India, and also the Managing Director and Global Chief Executive Officer of Sunpar and Consultants Private Limited. He is the most influential leader of year 2021.
What's Sunfire and Consult? That's not me, guys. I think you got the wrong. There's no Sunfire. There's Seed Capital and there's Kautilya Fellowship. I think you picked up the wrong. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
He's also been awarded with the Mahatma Gandhi Award for Green Energy for 2021. As we continue with the session, a request to all the attendees to hold back their questions until we begin the Q&A session. We have with us Mr. Vidit Chauhan, the President of NIVESH. Now, over to you, Vidit.
Thank you, Priya. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sir for taking out the time from his busy schedule to be with us today. It's a great honor and a privilege to have you as an esteemed speaker for our fest, sir. As your both venture Seed Capital and Hava has been doing, pretty great now, and we are really honored, and indeed, it's a matter of pride for us to be have you with us today. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to hand over the platform to Mr. Ajay Chaturvedi. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks so much. So yeah, it's a pleasure and honor, but I'm typing in the websites of my ventures because I think you got the wrong Ajay Chaturvedi there, or maybe, I don't know, you picked up the wrong. So that's the first one is my own website, ajaychaturvedi.in. The second one, kfnorg.in. And then Seed Capital is like this sort of the overarching theme. I know you guys in Delhi. How many of the students are outside Delhi right now? Like of the 100 or 200 odd that I see here, how many would be outside Delhi? In other states, in South India and places other than that? Would you know? Okay. So yeah, there is
around
enough
80
people.
people are from Delhi, and many of us are from outside Delhi also.
Got it. So yeah. Okay, got it. So there's UP, Bihar, Assam. Fantastic. I just wanted to get the distribution because when I speak about this, yeah, that's good, guys. Thanks so much. You don't need to type anymore. Yeah, I wanted an idea of, where the people are from. So this is good. Now, all of us have sort of witnessed this whole pandemic in the past year and a half, 2 years, and the effects have been devastating in some ways. The effects have been very, very positive in some other ways. A lot of people like me have genuinely benefited from the pandemic in terms of growth, intellectual, mental, everything else, because everything has sort of become online. So, suddenly you've stopped wasting 2.5, 3 hours of your day commuting. You've stopped wasting time in pollution. You've stopped wasting time in traffic. You stopped wasting time, getting frustrated over things that, were not important to your work and things other than that. So I genuinely personally feel that, there's two ways to look at it. Like there's a positive way and there's a negative way. The negative way is, of course, talking about those things, and that's really bad. And, I feel sorry for that. But the positive way that, you might want to look at is when you start to sort of appreciate what you have been offered, and it sort of has resulted in something far, far better than what we were able to do before. Now, having said that, I'm basically I've been an engineer. I've studied computer science, then finance, traveled across the world, finally launched my own venture. But what I realized is that I'm basically a philosopher, right? Because I like to see the things the way they are and try to explain to people that not every action that they take, not everything that they do can be planned in advance by looking at the current set of systems. You need to sort of look at like a much bigger overarching holistic theme in taking those actions. And that does not leave finance out either. So the classic financial structures that you saw, and you guys probably have been studying, worked wonders, right? For a certain amount of time, when the system was sort of predictable, everything was great, it was fantastic, right? I could give you a very academic lecture, but that's not the idea, because we have little time, and I'd like to open up for questions as well. Basically, what I've seen is that until you have a holistic picture, unless you see a picture which is with the current systems in place, it does not really benefit you, no matter how robust your organizational systems or structures are. And that was very evident when the dot-com bust happened. The dot-com bust happened in around 2000. Then the real estate crisis happened around 2008, right? Just before that, the Ramalanga Raju crisis also happened. I'm not sure how many of you would have known about, do you guys know about the real estate crisis, the 2008, what happened, right? The subprime mortgage crisis that happened. Essentially, they had fantastic systems in place. They had everything that, you could ask for. So as long as the bank manager approved of the property, they would take the papers, hand over something under an assumption that, the property valuation will go up. And there's a very interesting movie, I think it's called Badmash Company, watch that to understand how those things can be tweaked around. So when they picked up the paper, the debt, their underlying assumption was that the real estate will always keep going up. Okay. But here's what's interesting. In the United States around that time, the immigrations were capped. People were not having as many babies. Not many people were coming into the United States. So the population was not necessarily going up. So making an assumption that the real estate prices will keep going up has to be backed by the number of people wanting to buy those properties, supporting that. And that was not supporting it, right? But they kept hiking up so they took a 100 rupee paper for debt. They gave the debtor 120 with the valuation expecting that, it'll be 140 at some time, right? And then the balance was then transferred off. That person then took it and, sold off the paper, the apartment or the house, the real estate in California. After a while, they realized, now they took this paper, they securitized it, and they sold this off to Japanese investors. So when the investors came back asking for, what the returns were, somebody had to go back and check what was really happening. And they realized that, I'm telling you a very, very simplistic sort of story of when they started to see that they realized that, all this loan that was made out based on an assumption that was completely fictitious, wrong, no amount of systemic change, no amount of systemic checking could have actually changed that whole idea. And so when they started to see this, they realized, oh my God, this is what's happened, right? So subprime crisis was basically this, that the Japanese investors suffered who actually were invested, and these guys could not, control any of this post facto. So your systems and your structures are only as good as your own understanding of what is going on in the whole world, right? So don't take any of this as gospel truth, right? Whatever you're studying, always take it with a pinch of salt, not because the people who are teaching you are wrong, not because what's written in the books is wrong, not because the concepts are wrong. No, all that is right. But everything needs to be understood from the context that you're in at that time. You are actually living a life which is completely unique from any other time in history. right? Your parents might tell you something, your elders might tell you something, your seniors might tell you something, I might tell you something, but always take that with the understanding of what is going on in the world today. You can't just take it as a blanket, gospel truth and start implementing it. So that's, the very first learning that I had in the financial world, that everything will need to keep changing. And we come from an economy, especially in India. I mean, I spent a lot of time abroad, but we come from an economy where um, things are not exactly what they might seem to you sitting in Delhi or sitting in Bangalore. For example, the British colonized India for 260 years, 250 years, colonized, not ruled. After that, we had 70 years of this education. Okay. All of us are speaking in English. I'm speaking in English. You're understanding in English. I can't possibly give you a lecture on finance in Hindi, right? You might think that. What is the total percentage of people in India that speak or communicate in English? Can anybody tell me? You can type your answers here. 30%. Kanika says 30. Nitesh Gupta says 30, 35, 20%, 40%, 40%. Divyanshi Gupta. This is interesting. Palak Jain says 65. Palak, where are you from? Palak Jain, where is Palak Jain from? Khushi Goyal says, wow. Okay, so enough, guys, enough. I've got an idea, right? Palak Jain says that it is 60%. I'm honestly, quite surprised. Here's the thing, right? You need to understand. Okay, enough, guys. Shiva Bansal says 10 to 15%. Here's the interesting thing. This is what you need to understand. First, numbers can be deceptive. Numbers can be made to portray anything. Okay, that's why I specifically said in my question, I asked in my question, what is the number of people, that percentage of people that communicate in English, right? Will you be my friend is not English. Mujhse shaadi karogi is not English, right? It's not. Communication in English is like literally when you're actually able to make some tangible, meaningful conversation with somebody who also understands it. The total percentage of English speaking population in India today is less than 5%. That is what I'm talking about. That's statistics. Second, the deo industry, the deodorant industry, right? All of you guys know, right? There is, every fourth ad in the TV is a deo ad. There's a girl who sprays deodorant on her, guys come stick to on her, and same way with the guy, sprays deodorant, like 50 girls. The advertising is fantastic. The deodorants were launched around 2000. What is the total percentage of Indians or India? What is the total percentage penetration that the deodorants have in the Indian market? You can type here. 15%, 25%, less than 25%. The deodorants were launched in India around 2000, the year 2000. Okay. Before that, it had to be like, very rare. I mean, today, almost everyone has a deodorant, right? What is the total percentage of the total penetration of deodorant industry in India today? 13 to 15%. Anyway, so yeah, you guys are, around the ballpark. You're going from 15 to about 40%. The deodorant industry today in India is about 30, 35%. Okay, one last question, right? Just to give you an idea of the statistics. Life insurance industry in India has existed for the longest time. In 1947, around the time of independence, a lot of these companies, sold their stake to LIC and then they fled. But LIC today is like the largest asset in terms of the insurance industry. The insurance industry itself has spent in excess of $10 billion in marketing, and they lost in excess of $1 billion in just writing off claims, net losses. What do you think is the total percentage penetration of life insurance industry in India? By the way, every fourth ad is a deodorant ad. Every third ad is a life insurance industry ad. What do you think is the total percentage penetration of life insurance industry in India? %67%, 4.2%, 5%, 50%. Okay, Kaustubh Ladha has the perfect answer. It is about 3%. I'm not sure how he got it, but it is around 3%. What I'm trying to highlight is every product that has a high percentage penetration does not mean that it is the most needed product. And everything that has a low penetration is not that the people don't understand it, right? You got to trust the market. The fact that people are not speaking in English, despite 250 years of British colonization and English being an aspirational language, the fact is that things get done without English in India. That's the one thing, right? You got to understand. Number two, life insurance industry, when you go and try to sell a life insurance to a farmer who's got some piece of land and you tell his wife that, it'll take 50 rupees a month to buy an insurance policy, he does not buy it. Why? Because a kisan ki zameen ki qeemat uski jaan se zyada hai, right? The life insurance is basically telling you about insuring life, but the fact is the land is far more dearer to the farmer's wife than his life, right? And when you understand that, I'm not talking about something which is esoteric. I'm talking about what is foundational, right? If you understand the whole idea why it is this, why India is the way it is, this is probably the only country where people are very, very connected to nature, right? When I say connected to nature, they are literally connected in a way that they can communicate with nature where other people can't, right? So the shamans, for example, or the Native Americans, a lot of indigenous civilizations, so to say, are the ones that are, very, very well connected with nature. When you start to understand that, you realize that people don't really care about insurance kind of products. It's not that it's not important. It's not that they don't understand what insurance is. It's just that they are far more clued in and they're far more relying on what the nature has to offer. So that's why the amount of money spent on life insurance industry and the advertising is far higher than the deodorants industry, but the deodorants is about 35% penetration. Life insurance only is about 3%. And life insurance, they can come up with options like 50 rupees a month kind of a insurance premium, 10 rupees a month kind of insurance premium. Still, it's not going. You got to understand that the people on the ground are far smarter than what you give them credit for. Somebody is not able to speak in English has absolutely no credibility in terms of his intelligence, right? So you got to understand. That is one thing that I understood when I started to go out in India and I started to feel the country for what it was, than take somebody else's word for it. Now, when I launched my venture, one of the things that I completely understood, like the back of my hand, started understanding over a period of time, is that I've come with a perspective from numbers that have come from, let's say, a World Bank or a World Economic Forum. Those numbers don't make much sense on the ground because that is one perspective. And it's good to have that perspective, but it's not just the only perspective, right? So when you're looking at India, when you're looking at, let's say you guys go out to, a finance outlet or a company, you start working with, a bank, maybe. One is what the statistics is saying, but then the complete different reality is what is on the ground. So don't always go by a low penetration, high marketing budget as a huge opportunity in the market. Okay, as is the case I've just told you about English, right? Or deodorants or life insurance industry, completely different, right? In addition to this, also start looking at things like, people have come and made claims. I mean, starting from Colgate to, let's say, a Kellogg. Kellogg comes into India in 1993, and they made a claim that, they'll change India's breakfast habits. In 2020, they ended up launching Kellogg Upma, right? And Upma is something that you've always had. So you got to start understanding and tapping into the intellect, the people on the ground, what they're doing, and what is it that they need. If you don't understand that, financing any kind of a product or selling any kind of product, pushing any kind of product will not make any sense. The kind of financial interventions that we need today in the market is very different from what is actually happening today. So the kind of innovations that we need in finance are also far, far higher. So there's a lot of things that are happening in the, with the government schemes coming in today, that a lot of that, which we had seen before should have happened, has not happened. But that's fortunately going to take some steps and, will be positively looked at, because a lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of the ecosystem that you're seeing on ground, you're hearing about all these unicorns, right? All the unicorns like $50 billion valuation, $70 billion valuation. But then you're seeing a guy, what is it that they're really selling, right? If you go just around IIT Delhi, around that area, about 10-kilometer radius, right? And you start to just survey the kind of people that are there, right? Who are selling, small things like chole bhature and, dal chawal and rajma chawal and whatnot, right? Those guys have a business sense which is unparalleled, right? Now, all that money is basically just cash transactions. Somebody who's selling like, mot ki dal chawal is not selling it at 100 rupees a plate. He's selling it for like, 20 rupees, 30 rupees a plate. All that is cash transaction. So you got to start understanding, is that guy really even looking for a loan? Is that guy even coming in the, ambit of what you're trying to survey? They're not. So that's one aspect of Indian economy that I realized that you could definitely tap and start to explore in terms of what could be done to amplify that innovation, right? The thing that we are missing right now is that if Facebook were to come to India today, right, and a Mark Zuckerberg were to make a proper proposal to State Bank of India for getting a 1 lakh rupee loan, do you think he'll get it? I don't think so, right? State Bank of India does not recognize the Facebook model. What is the Facebook model? I mean, what are they selling? They're giving free accounts. That's it. I mean, you have a account, you're connecting with friends worldwide. So what, right? The whole model is based on a financing technique, and what they're trying to sell you is you to the companies, because they're just collecting your data. So when the product is free, when a service is free, the product is really you, right? But when you flip that, you find that, almost no, somebody was typing something, they've given their degree, I'm not sure why. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar College. That I thought this is Aurobindo College, right? Anyway, so, when you start to understand that, you'll start seeing that you need to have a different perspective for the Indian market. If you were to sell a product, if you were to make a product, if you were to have a financial innovation of sort, you need to be in tune with what's happening on the ground, rather than taking something which has happened in a developed, different economy, which is, probably a, developed economy. Their understanding, their idea is very different. That is what I understood after launching Harva, which is the first all-women rural BPO. And I said, this is something that, people are not understanding. So what can we do to change that perception? And so I, ended up writing a book called Lost Wisdom of the Swastika. That book essentially tells you about the way to think and understand the people on the ground. If you don't understand what is on-ground reality in every place, any place, right? It's not just about India. It is very true about, countries like India, which is more in tune with nature, so Sri Lanka, maybe it's China would be close to that, or, most of the countries in Africa, they're very close to nature, but the countries are very plastic. Like, I mean, a city like London, for example, would not qualify for this, because they don't really understand, what is it that nature's cycles are. So when you start to align with that, you'll suddenly realize that the philosophy of that place is very important, right? You have a Christmas which is being celebrated at 25th December every year, but you have a Diwali which comes on a different day every year, right? It does not match with the calendar. Why is it that, right? You got to ask that. So it's based on a lunisolar calendar. Now, but how's that important? How's that, affecting me? It is affecting you, because whatever is being observed on the ground is translating to a culture. That activity which is happening is a festival, which triggers the economy. That economy is what makes the businesses go, right? If you're in tune with this, suddenly, I mean, just imagine when the mango crop is coming out, if you start harvesting the mangoes, then make the mango shake, and then start, tuning in with that, you suddenly are in tune with nature. But let's say apple crop is coming out, but you're selling mango shakes, you're out of tune. That's essentially what the sustainability crisis is. But where does it come from? It comes from the ability of the people who are selling those products, or, making companies that are selling those products, when they are in tune with people on the ground. And why am I saying this? So that book then resulted in a subject called Kullad economy. What we are essentially talking about is if you go to, let's say the Vasant Kunj flyover, which is pretty close to your college, there's a guy who comes on a cycle and he sells mot ki dal and chawal. Do you think he does that the whole year round? No, he does not. He does it when the mot ki dal is popular, right? And when there's something else that's coming out, then he sells that, right? You got to understand that the whole idea of standardization has almost taken away the creativity. It's great to have a McDonald's fries, which tastes the exact same it is in New York as it is in New Delhi or it is in Bihar, Patna. But the fact is, I need to have the local potatoes. Unless you're able to source those local potatoes, I'm paying 10 times the price for a product that is not grown here, right? That's essentially the root of sustainability crisis. And how does it come about? It comes about by the way we are financing things. If the financiers understood this and they actually started to go in tune with this, then suddenly the businesses that grow will be in tune with nature. And suddenly your crisis of unemployment, sustainability, climate, all of this will suddenly change because, you're just selling what is coming out, right? So it sounds, of course, very almost a perfectionist approach, but it's not. It's just being in tune with nature, right? And that's something that I understood. Now with that, I think, this is a little too short for me to be giving you a, holistic angle on, what the financing industry should be, what the banks should be and all that. But let me, take you to the other part of it. The most important thing you guys need to understand is to be able to think critically. Unless you're thinking critically, unless you're analyzing whatever problem that you come across critically, there is no point, right? So start asking critical questions rather than taking things for granted. This person has said it, it must be true. No. Ask the questions, ask critical questions. If today is Friday, why is it Friday? Why is it not Thursday? Does anybody know why today is Friday? Nobody knows, I guess. That's a critical question. Why are there 24 hours in a day? No, Mahmood Ahmed, that's totally wrong. We don't follow Roman calendar. That's precisely what I was trying to hint at, right? We don't follow. It's a mathematical answer. No, that's precisely wrong. It's not Friday today because yesterday was Thursday. These are very scientific mathematical things. I'm writing my second book is on time. So I'm actually going to be explaining a lot of those things. The problem with us is we've taken for granted what's been fed to us, right? And it's not your fault. It is something that, somebody had to get up and pick up the pieces and start going back and questioning, right? If you want more productivity, the idea is not just to work more, right? Productivity comes when you work smart. Working more might give you, a 5%, 10% increase, but working smart can give you 3, 4, 500 multiples of increases. How does that happen? You got to understand that people, I might be a great worker early in the morning at 4 a.m. Somebody else might be a great worker at 12 midnight. Somebody else might be a great worker at 6 p.m. in the evening, right? And you got to understand how that comes. Again, the weekdays are very different. If you start understanding those weekdays, oh, fantastic, it starts making a difference. The Roman calendar that we follow, the Gregorian calendar, originally was intended to be a 10-month calendar. That 10-month calendar is essentially that, came out from 10 fingers because they said, it's something you want to control. You can't control until you're able to measure it. And how do you measure it if you don't have an idea? Why do we have 12 months? Nobody knows. So the Romans, when they came to India, they understood, they can only be 12 months. Actually, it comes from us. The system comes from very Vedic systems. Those Vedic systems tell you that there are 12 months because the number of intersections of sun and the path of moon is 12. And so the months that were inserted later on, so it's even now the calendar that we follow is like September, October, November, December. It's only 10 months, Sept, Oct, Noc, Dec, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 2 months inserted were July after Julius Caesar and August after Augustus Caesar. And so it made the 12-month calendar because essentially in India, we always followed a 12-month calendar. And that is visible in the Panchangas that are there. Now, coming with that, concept of time is important. The texture of time is even more important. If you understood the texture of time, then you'll have an economic activity which is completely in tune with those textures. And suddenly you find it's making a lot of sense. You don't pluck a flower in the middle of the night. If you have to pluck a flower, you pick it, around sunrise, because that's when the flower has blossomed, or right after sunrise. So you start understanding that the economic activities are in tune with nature, right? You don't celebrate Makar Sankranti in India around March. You celebrate on January 14th. Why is it happening that way? Or why you are celebrating a Diwali on a particular day, and the kind of crop that is coming out is made into products, right? The idea is whatever is growing is in tune with nature. If you make products out of that, it suddenly multiplies your economy in ways that you had not imagined. But if you start to cap it, then all you're trying to do is fix square pegs in round holes. And that does not work well for sustainability. That's the kind of problem that we're facing today, right? With that, I think I've had enough. I think I'll probably give you guys some chance to ask questions, because I can keep going on and on this. Happy to answer any questions, guys. But thank you so much for the invite. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a great session. Every one of us learned so many things. Now we'll move to the Q&A session.
Yeah.
Guys, please post your questions in the Q&A box.
Shriji, sir, you speak so good. Thank you so much, man. I can keep going on and on, but I'd like to give you guys an opportunity, because the problem with any of these finance lectures is, nor can you get too technical, nor can I give you things which you probably don't have any idea of. We can talk about lots of things around, derivatives, financing techniques, financial tools, but that's not important, because you'll anyway get to learn. I'm here to tell you about things which you should learn before getting into the real world. Being in a college is fine. Making an Excel spreadsheet is great. Making a business model in Excel spreadsheet, there's nothing better than an Excel model, because in the Excel model, you're the king. You can literally change rates and suddenly have $1 billion valuation. That's not important. The important thing is to understand what is going on in the market. If you understand that, then suddenly your reality is completely different from where you would like to launch, right? The one thing, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm just giving you, I'm learning so many new things today, even a non-finance background student. Okay.
So we have few questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah.
Should I go further?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So the first question is, Harva entered the Limca Book of Records for being the first all-woman rural BPO in the world in 2011.
Yeah.
So what's your strategy for shaping the future of it?
See, I go a lot by my intellect, which is tuned from the local intelligence. Okay. Maybe when I was in college, I was like you guys, everything was like perfect, right? I come across people, you go to, somebody in Bihar, and you ask them, what do they want to do? And the guy says, I want to launch a Facebook for Bihar. The problem is, I'm giving you hypothetical examples. Bihar is just an example. It could be Tamil Nadu, it could be Uttar Pradesh, it could be anywhere. The problem is that you cannot have static innovations. You cannot think of innovations like, I'd like to do something which somebody else did 20 years ago. No, the world has changed completely. Zuckerberg invented Facebook, or, sort of innovated Facebook. In Boston, it was snowing, a completely different country, completely different climate, completely different, ethos. The society is very different. What you do here has to be in tune with where you are, right? And when you understand that, suddenly things become a lot clearer. When I launched Harva in 2010, technology was still as nascent. It was not, it had not gone across India. I mean, not everyone had cell phones. For example, today everyone has a smartphone. At that time, not everyone had cell phones. Not only that, people didn't have internet. So we had a problem where there was no internet. I was in Haryana. I'd come to Gurgaon from the US. we didn't have electricity in all the Haryana villages. The problem, by the way, of electricity is not of supply. The problem of electricity is something totally different. It's a political problem. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But I realized that there was no electricity, right? So in winters, a village would get 3 hours of electricity in the daytime, and I think 3-4 hours of electricity at nighttime. And that's how it was working. So no internet, no electricity, no computers, and we're just going. So when we made a first presentation in one of the Jat village Khap Panchayats in Haryana in 2010, the one person, and we had a lot of people, 200 odd women here and there, and the person that came up first and she said she wanted to work with us was a woman, and she was around 35 years old. And I said, how much have you studied? And she says, I'm from college, like I've not done college, I've studied till 8th grade. And I was wondering how she could even, think that she could work here, but she had that confidence. I said, okay, great, we'll give you a chance. And after a while, she came up to me and she told me that, she wanted to tell me something, and I asked her what, and she started to recite the keyboard. So Q, W, E, R, T, Y, U, I, O, P, A, S, D, F, G. I still can't do it, but she did. What was fascinating to me was that a woman who had not seen a computer in her life sees it for the first time and memorizes the keyboard like this. And I asked her why, and her answer was simple. She says, in school we were taught A, B, C, D, but I saw this keyboard, it had Q, W, E, R, T, Y. Why is it that? I could not answer her, right? But then what clicked to me was, it's fantastic, right? We have a set mindset. If I were to teach computers to somebody today, I'll teach them, there was ENIAC, EDIAC, Charles Babbage, father of computers, 286, 386, 486, Windows, lap. All that is rubbish. To her, it didn't matter. To her, what was important is the keyboard, because that's the tool, you're controlling it, right? When you're driving a car, it does not matter which car you're driving, as long as you know driving, like an adept driver, right? I mean, of course, there is a difference, right? You'll get used to. So one part that I understood was that we need to have a different outlook in terms of training and getting people on board. And we cannot give them the same training that was given to somebody, 10 years ago. That's one. Number two, we could see that there is, one thing that, happens prevalently especially in Haryana and Delhi, there's theka. Everywhere there's theka, right? I mean, you cannot get like a building license, but you'll definitely have a theka. People are selling booze left, right, and center. The booze sells at night, and there was no electricity. So I thought, we have 50 odd computers. We've taken these women, we've trained them from 500, we've got them down to this, and we can manage with the generator. But what about the rest of the time when there's no electricity? See, here's the thing. The theka there is keeping the beer chilled throughout the day when the people are only drinking at night. So we made them a deal. We said, why can't you, give us electricity for 50 computers? You would think that it would take a lot of it. It's not. It's about 2,000 rupees worth of electricity. So we gave him 2,000 rupees per month, and the electricity was got from a theka. Okay. Third, every internet provider refused to give me internet. They said, in a village, in a Jat village, Khap Panchayat, it's not possible. I said, it's possible. So I got dongles from my, apartment, and we gave 50 dongles to computers. So the first all-women rural BPO was actually something which was a completely Kullad economy-oriented model, right? We basically clubbed pieces together. That is the innovative thinking. The second piece now coming to it, I'm realizing that the technology pace is far higher than the way I'm scaling the business. So either I can keep going and training them and uptraining them on whatever was being taught before, right? There was a time that these women were working on computers. They can type faster than most of us put together. They could memorize menu options on Excel, on Word, PowerPoint, whatnot, right? But today, with a lot of these word processing softwares, which are literally making them, outpricing the humans, it does not make sense for us to go there. Plus, when you've got mangoes growing in your backyard, there's no point selling apple jam in the market. So why aren't you selling, the mangoes? And that is what made us graduate this. So, Harva, one part is a BPO, which is, fine. The bigger part now is the Kullad economy. We're saying, why aren't we selling products from the places where they are, and whatever they're making, we're just not branding them enough, right? For every woman here, I can clearly ask you guys, what does a Barbie doll mean to you, right? Ask a 3-year-old girl, 4-year-old girl. They're playing with a Barbie doll, but does a Barbie doll really mean anything? I mean, to the 3-year-old kid, it's a toy. Most of the kids, you just give them a toy, they just play with it, right? The kid makes their own toy, literally, right? Half the kids, I can tell you for a fact from my personal experience that, you go to a 1-year-old kid, you give a nice shiny packet of a really nice and expensive toy. They'll take out the shiny peely wrapper, they'll play with the wrapper, they'll throw away the toy, right? That's invariably what happens. So what you'll realize is that it's the conditioning that we've been fed into. So one of the things that, in Kulhad economy, one of the case studies you're doing was in Madhya Pradesh, and the students came back to us and they said, they had this fantastic case study where they've spotted this guy who makes dolls, and he's a very popular guy, and he's got like some 20, 30 women who are working with him, and they're all, either disabled or divorced or, widowed or whatnot. And he says, they're doing fantastic work. So I said, why aren't we promoting it? And he says, the only thing is that they don't have a marketing budget, right? So, I'm thinking, how does this happen? Because a person who's got a business which is about 20 lakhs worth of turnover cannot apply under a SME loan in SBI, because the SBI cap would be at 25 crores. These businesses are not even visible. Most of you guys not even heard of it, right? I'm sure people who are in Madhya Pradesh, somebody in Indore can actually go around there and find out. That is what you need to pick up, right? And you suddenly realize that if we sold it well, then it would do wonders. All of us have grown up drinking haldi doodh as kids. Whenever we had something, an illness and whatnot, our mothers give us haldi doodh. But today, Starbucks has made a product out of it. It's called turmeric latte. That turmeric latte is selling for $10 a pop. So in my mind, back to your question, the strategy to scale up is to understand that, I have not seen personally much dearth on innovation in India. The dearth is in productizing it and marketing it. And in that, to be able to do that, the gap is really in the financing. If we can identify the right kind of financiers, Facebook was funded on a hunch by Peter Thiel, $500 million by Peter Thiel on a hunch that this market, this product will zoom, right? How many of those guys do we have? Not many, right? And that is what I realized is something. So our strategy really now is to start taking products in Kulhad economy, KFN, one of the ventures that I mentioned above, is what we are doing. You guys could actually become, interns over here. You could do case studies. We can evaluate those case studies. They can be, showcased on our website as well. That's essentially what I'm doing now. So Harva is basically growing in a way that is not just BPOs, it's actually X process outsourcing. So whatever we could think of before is being outsourced. I hope that answers.
Yes, sir. It was a really great answer.
Yeah.
Now, concluding with the session, I would like to thank all the participants, our panel, and the guest of honor, Mr. Ajay Chaturvedi, sir, for his valuable time and wise words. Vidit, would you like to add on something?
No, I think you have pretty much summed it up, but I would just like to take this opportunity to thank sir again. Indeed, it was really an informative session, so we really did enjoy it a lot. And about the internship opportunity for all the students, I think it would be really helpful for all the students of our college. I would just like to thank you on this note, so thank you so much.
So thank you so much. I think Neha Kriplani has just asked me a question. She's a host and panelist. Who's Neha Kriplani? I'm not sure. Anyway, so she's asked me, how do you get this knowledge of all these things? You get knowledge by being curious. You get knowledge by being critical, right? Ask critical questions. Be curious about things. Don't just take it for granted. Like I've asked you a question, nobody can answer me, right? And you guys are all smart kids from Delhi, right? If you can't even tell me why today is Friday, when it's being followed for like decades, centuries, millennia, I mean, I'm thinking there's something lacking. Anyway, I'm writing a book on that. But having said that, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to partner with you guys to get KFN internships to you guys. That's something we're doing with IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, BITS Pilani, IMI, right? So happy to get you on board, guys. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It's really a pleasure to hear you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And I really... thank you, sir. I mean, in the beginning of the session, you said that you are a philosopher, first of all. And sometimes, in economics also, we talk about, the word homo economicus, which is really a word play of homo sapiens, right? But sometimes, in our day-to-day life, we do not pay heed to our philosophical aspect. So that is also very much important. Thank you so much, sir, for such an enlightening session.
But by the way, can you get those screen? Like I haven't seen the.
Sir, actually,
everyone,
as
so
a
I'd like to
host,
take a screenshot.
as a host, I can see all the students. I have taken a virtual
Okay, take a
screenshot.
screenshot. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Send
have
it to me.
taken
Yeah.
it. You will get that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Lovely. Okay.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Guys, we'll be starting with the next session soon. You all are requested to stay in the meeting. We'll start with the next session within 5 minutes. So it will be great if you all can just stay in the meeting. Thank you so much. Just to follow up with all the attendees here, we'll begin in 5 minutes exactly. So till then, you all are requested to stay on. Thanks. I know we'll be starting with the uh, next session soon, so please stay on in the meeting. Soumya, we'll be beginning in just 2 minutes. So it will be great if you can just hold on tight. Thank you so much.
Very good afternoon to all the admirable dignitaries, teachers, and participants who have joined us today. I, Sneha Jain, your host for this session, would like to welcome you all to FINVERSE 2022, organized by NIVESH, the Finance and Investment Cell, Department of Commerce, Sri Aurobindo University of Delhi. As quoted by Peter Drucker, the best way to predict the future is to create it. You are the composer of your so work out what you want from life and go out and get it, as nothing comes easily. Here we have with us Aditya Arora, CEO, FAD Network Private Limited. He has completed his education in graduation in finance and analysis from the University of Delhi. He has won many laurels throughout. Some are the Parliamentary Award, Duke of Edinburgh International Award, Microsoft Top 15 Changemakers of India, Rex Karamveer Chakra by United Nations, and the list goes on. Apart from this, he has also been the youngest Padma Shri nominee in the year 2020. Sir, we feel extremely privileged to have you here. Looking forward to a great session ahead. A small request to all the attendees there, please hold back your questions and queries, if any, till the end of the session. Now, I would like Vidit Chauhan, President at NIVESH, Finance and Investment Cell of Sri Aurobindo College, to take the session forward. Over to you, Vidit.
Thank you, Sneha. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sir for taking out the time from his busy schedule to be with us today. It really means a lot, Sir. And of course, it's a great honor and a privilege to have you as an esteemed speaker for our fest. I've always been a great admirer of your organization, and it's an immense, indeed, a matter of pride for us to have you with us today. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to hand over the platform to Mr. Aditya Arora. Over to you, sir.
Got it. I hope my video and audio is completely fine. Perfect. Great. First of all, thank you so much, to the team and the college for having me. It's indeed a pleasure being with the students, and kind of reminds my days in Delhi University 3 years back, which is now 4 years back. It's 2022, so 4 years back as a student, and it's been, of course, a crazy journey. A lot has happened in this journey, but I think more than that, more than any achievement or more than any accolade, I think one thing that I always value is the learnings that I've got along the way, and that is what I think eventually matters when you are starting out your journey in entrepreneurship or in any sphere of life. What you eventually want for yourself is that people respect you, your work, and you sort of get more opportunities along the way. But that is what your aim should be in college, right? Right now, we are your college students still studying. Maybe you have, let's say, 1 year or 2 years, or maybe you have, let's say, 3 years, the entire quota. After that, you'll go ahead and, of course, start your own career. So, college is the time where you explore, where you see that, okay, this is that thing that I can actually do. Because if you move out from college and you move into one, let's say, one particular field or profession, then hardly we sort of shift from a stable life, from a well-paying job. But if we don't actually explore in college, if we don't explore our interest, how will we get to sort of identify that this is that something that we want to do? It becomes very, very important that the college life, the 3 years that we have, is an exploration, right? Where we try out different stuffs, where we try out different things. We do a job, we do a startup, we do arts, whatever it is, right? And then maybe take a decision that this is that something that we actually want to go ahead and do in our lives. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. If in my college life I wouldn't have explored, I wouldn't have been here, right? Because startups was never the plan A for me. I came from a middle class family, went to a college, and the college aim was to get a good placement, right? The aim was very, very clear, right? But then I ditched everything and I started doing something which wasn't the plan A. So again, life is crazy, as I said, like anything can happen. But you should have the vision and motivation to actually go ahead. Second thing that I want to talk about is no matter whatever profession you are in, whatever you end up actually sort of doing in life, be it a job, be it a master's, or be it startup, or be it whatever, fine arts or whatever, content is driving the world right now. So whatever content that you create, whatever thing that you create, you learn. Now we live in a content frenzy world where whatever you're putting out there, whatever you're learning by yourself, it's very important to share all of these learnings with people as well. And having that own personal brand attached to yourself is something that actually helps you a lot. You can be, let's say, the lowest level in any organization, or you could be the senior most position. But then one thing that you have to make sure is that if you are more with people, if you are accepted more in terms of people, then positions actually don't matter. The value that you bring onto the table, that's something that matters, right? So with that, I started creating content as well in the last 2.5 years. And content is not just about posting reels, right? A lot of us think that content is just about like posting reels, it's just about like getting traction or dancing to some trendy songs. Of course, that is one part of it. That's one form of content. But that's not the only form of content. A lot of content comes where you publish reports. A lot of content comes when you, let's say, publish a research paper. A lot of content comes in, let's say, when you develop a website. A lot of content comes in when you put out a simple LinkedIn post or a tweet. Anything can happen, right? And if you start creating content, then with your stable work, which of course will grow stably in the next so many years, content comes in where it gives you the push, right? Where it increases the speed. I'll tell you with a perfect example. Like right now, it may be too early for us to digest this, but in the last 1.5 years, I started creating content. FAD was, we were literally just funding companies. We were at 5 companies back then. I started focusing on myself. I started focusing more on my getting more, consuming more content and research as well. And in the last 2 years, if I talk about, we funded from 5, we've gone about to 50 companies. It's of course helped my professional work as well, the content that I've started creating. And in terms of content, the content of course has grown significantly across different social media platforms, be it Twitter, be it LinkedIn, be it Instagram, whatever. So one is that content or whatever you consume, whatever you value that you add, will add to the quality of whatever you're doing. It helps you put into a larger professional stature as well. And it also helps you to, of course, move into more more informed society, into better groups, into better networking groups. And now, since I've spoken about networking, let's end my last part of the thing, or the short speech that I wanted to share here with you, was the third aspect, which is networking. Networking is super crucial for anyone, right? Because there is a certain limit of amount of, let's say, a progress, a career progress that you can do in any particular field. That network helps you to move along various fields. That network helps you to take your work ahead. When you build a network, you're harnessing the power of, let's say, 6 or 7 people at the same time, not just one. So if I'm networking with about 7 or 8 odd people, I'm harnessing that power of networking with 6 or 7 or 8 people and then taking it ahead. So if you are in college, yes, network with everyone, right? Of course, have friend groups, but network with people who are outside of those groups as well. Network with people who are, let's say, outside of your college as well. Network with people who are, let's say, outside of your university as well. Network with people, let's say, who are outside of your age as well, right? Network with people. Understand how you can add value to their life. Understand how you can extract value from them as well. If you add certain value to their life, you will get some value for yourself too. So it's very, very important to have a good network in college. Very important. Be it with your students, be it with your peers, or be it with, let's say, some career professional. Because this network is what will help you. There are fixed number of opportunities that will come to you in college, right? Fixed number of opportunities. In placements, when it will happen, a fixed number of companies will come. When internship fair would happen, a fixed number of internship companies would come, right? But network is where you can multiply your whole potential. If I have networked with 20 different companies, then let's say at the time of placement, let's say 60 companies come in, I have access to 80, while the rest of my college students have access to 60. So I have better chances of getting a job than them, right? So that is, I always say, network, no matter whatever field you are in, whatever field you want to go. So yes, that is how it's very important. In fact, I built my own entire life on network only, right? Both my partners are senior level executives. No relation to my age, right? They are both like 5 or 6, 7 years older to me, and so is this entire industry. I'm in the business of funding startups and CEO of a venture capital firm at 24, right? So a lot of this industry, it's just based on people, of course, who have networked, who have gathered experience, and of course, who've gathered momentum in their whole career and aspect. You don't get a lot of course, students, for freshers, as I would say, to start out as CEOs of venture capital firms, right? That is the true power of networking. The one thing that I focused on was, of course, networking, that I have to network beyond college as well. And that is where somehow when the placement companies were coming in, I was already out of this because I already had one job before, of course, sitting for other jobs in college. So that is why I say it's very, very important that you network well. So 3 things we've talked about. The first aspect we talked about, I think, was, yes, explore, figure out your passion, right? And just keep doing 10 different things always. Of course, have a focus. Then by the time you get into your third year, have a focus. This is one thing that I want to do. Second thing that we talked about is how to drive engagement through content and how important content can play a role in your life. And third aspect we talked about is the power of networking, right? So these are the 3 aspects of entrepreneurs that I see. You create opportunities, you grab them, and as college students, I think you are right now in creating opportunities. So create more opportunities for yourself, and then quickly grab them by the time you graduate college. So yeah, with that, I think I'll rest my speech, and there are already some Q&As. So we'll give it back to the host, Vidit and Sonali, to sort of just go ahead and take it. Stay here, sir.
It was a commendable session indeed, sir. We have learned immensely throughout. Okay, so now we can take up the questions from the Q&A. So first question is by Priya. At the time of commencement, a company is focused more on its vision-driven objectives than stages. So there could be a tendency for the quote institution to overpower the quote inspiration. How do you keep that away from happening in your organization?
Hmm. So it's a very good question. Um, so again, as I got it, your question is more around that how would you the tendency of the quote institution. It's a very well framed question. I'm still trying to gather the exact meaning of it. But again, one thing that I would say is it's very important that whenever you start out in an organization, inspiration, of course, should be there to motivate your employees. But at the end of the day, the institutional values is what drives the company ahead. If a company is not doing well, I can motivate my employees. But if there's a lack of a judgment error or something on the part of the employees, I can't motivate them to not make it. I have to put in my institutional values and stop the deficiency right there. So it's very important. You could be an inspiration for people out there, but at the end of the day, you also have to have your institutional values attached to running an organization. Right? So on one thing that I'm saying, whenever you join a new company or a new organization, firstly, cherish the culture of the organization that you're joining. It's very important to see who all are the people around. Second, it's most important that you relate to the values of the company, right? You could let's say earn crores of rupees working in a company as well, right? You could have a very fancy starting package. But let's say if you don't relate with the cultures of the company, if you don't relate with the objectives of the company, then the money that you will get will not come in with a tinge of happiness, right? It will come in with a tinge of regret or guilt or what I'm working here for apart from money. So whenever you start out, make sure that the institutional values are also being taken into mind, but just don't go into too much institutional values. Inspiration is something that changes values as well. Simple rule. My co-founders, when they were looking for a CEO, their institutional values said to them, then look for someone who's experienced, who's 28, 30, 32 years old, right? Who's worked in a VC organization before, who's funded startups before, who knows how to take the pulse of the startups. But then maybe a motivation was kicking in and they broke the rules and chose a 21-year-old guy for it. So sometimes institutional values are meant to be broken through the pursuit of inspiration, but then just don't focus too much on inspiration. Focus a bit on institution side of things as well. That is where my answer would be.
Yes, so we have another question from Madhav. In the recent times, many student-based startups have emerged. We too have one from our college, Uncover Campus, which facilitates students to solution for all the needs of college students. So what are your suggestions as beginners?
So my suggestions, okay, man, great to hear that your college as well has also sort of started having startups, and good to see that every Delhi University college that I've now started speaking in started having sort of startups. My advice to you would be that whenever you start out, just focus, believe in yourself, right? At the end of the day, everything looks scary, right? कि startup start करा है, अरे पैसा नहीं है, startup start करा है, we don't have funding, we don't have vision, we are very young. But the only thing that you have on the first day is belief. If you don't have that, then you have nothing, right? So have that belief whenever you're starting out, and don't make don't make mistakes. Don't make mistakes in the sense, of course, do make mistakes and learn from them, but don't make mistake of taking it in lightly. That every mistake that I made would be sort of ignored. Be a bit strict on yourself as well, because if you have to run the startup like that, you also have to be like run it in a very guided and a very focused manner. So whenever it comes to learning from mistakes, be strict on it, but whenever it comes to making mistakes, be a bit lenient, and just be patient, guys. A lot of people start up and sort of message me, DM me that it's not getting successful, it's been a lot of time. Figure out, right, that why is it not being successful. Go to the genesis or the root cause of the problem, and then go ahead and of course start it. So yeah, learn from your mistakes, make mistakes, and kind of just be patient as well while getting results for it.
Okay, so we have another question. Isha says, currently India has around unicorns emerging from the service sector alone. So, what are your views on the type of alternatives or innovations which should be implemented so that unicorns may emerge from other economic sectors too?
It's not that it's just emerging from service sector, right? It's like when we talk about unicorn companies like Mama Earth are product-based companies, right? So there are a lot of companies which are not just service-oriented companies, but they are leading a product as well. Most of the unicorns in India are tech-based companies, right? That's a rightful proposition to make. Everyone is using technology to scale to the next level, and that I think is a positive change, right? Because if you're not using technology for impact, if you are not using technology to help become a startup big in India, then how could you become big in India, right? So most of the unicorns are, of course, have product-based companies too in it. But I think the change is the companies are coming not just from Delhi, Bangalore. Companies are coming from Jaipur. Unicorns are coming from Pune. These are the new cities, Ahmedabad. These are the new cities where unicorns are getting created, right? And that is one change that we should look for. Middle class, who never earned, who never dreamed of making more than $1 million in their lifetime, are creating $1 billion value out there. That is the dream. That is a big Indian dream we should be chasing. We always talk about the big American dream, but that is, I think, the big Indian dream where middle class are becoming the next billionaires. And that is the rightful justification of how income should be distributed in this country. I hope that answers the question.
Sure, sir. We have another question from Sheena. What can be the most suitable funding option for a startup venture? Self-financing, bank loans, or loans from investors?
So I'll like break all three of them. In fact, I'll add one or two more. That, let's say, if you get equity, you all must be seeing Shark Tank, right? That is our an equity financing, where you give a portion of your company for some bit of capital. So let's talk about quick talk about 3-4 advantages. Right? When you take a loan from the bank, remember that loan has a specific category to it. You can't raise more, right? So you would have to raise that stipulated amount, and then let's say pay that to the bank with certain amount of interest. So you can't, if you are an early stage startup, you can't utilize a lot of that capital for growth. You always have to pay that back. That's the loan side of things. When we talk about the second, which is equity side of things. In equity side of things come relaxed, right? Wherein you say that if I'm raising equity, or if let's assume if you're raising money from Shark Tank, right? The shark would come in and would invest their time to take a business to the next level, right? They would not expect that money should be returned back to them. However, they would like it. They would want their money to come back with a certain premium, right? But even if it goes down, they can't demand money from you, right? So a bank, of course, can attach your property, can attach whatever it is against your loan, whatever you take. So with Shark, you can also get their expertise to sort of take the company to the next level. A banker, you can't say to a banker that give me a loan and then also provide me your expertise to take my business to the next level. That is what I say. Mostly in early stage startups, equity financing is a bit preferred form of financing. But then always make sure that the person you are tying up to, the person you're raising capital from, that should be a person who should add value to the company. Because capital you anyways can take ahead and raise, but the value that that person would give you, that is immemorial, that is priceless. So that is the kind of value you should be chasing. Yeah?
Many venture funds are now taking iSafe notes for funding the startups. Like, does FAR Network do the same?
Yeah. So iSafe is nothing but a convertible note only, right? Where let's say you're saying that I can't value my startup right now. I can't put a price to it. It's very difficult to value startups at an early stage. Let's say you say my startups is 60 crores value today. You can justify it with, let's say, a certain bit of logic. I can't argue and debate on it, right? So now what you have to do is, in convertibles, what it happens is it says that I'm not putting a price to it. Next round, whenever we raise, we'll convert our company and put a price accordingly. But it's unfair to price it right now. And we have done many deals like that, wherein we have done it at convertibles. So ICF is an instrument which does convertible. So yeah, we follow up. We have our own instruments and agreements as well. Thanks.
So we have another question from Medha. In today's scenario, though companies provide internship opportunities in different departments, They majorly focus on mass marketing of their products by interns, irrespective of their department. So, what is your take on this? Is it worth it?
So yeah, if you like entered into any university thinking that you'll get okay very fancy internships where you'll get to, let's say, work in very very big offices, like with the directly under the CEOs of very big large multinational companies, it does not usually happen, right? We're just starting up. We are usually at the just the start of our careers. So whenever you enter into any undergraduate college, understand that the opportunities may not be matching with the level of an MBA graduate, right? With a person who's very experienced, has a 10 years experience. It's unfair to make that comparison. And second, I say that no work is small work. Firstly, a lot of people call it like it's just promotions or anything, but I think the quality of the work lies in the quality of the person doing it, right? If you want to learn something from it, you can learn something from marketing as well, right? It's not that you can't learn anything. My first 2 months of the internship was just about interviewing people at FAR. That's it. Interview people and publish their story. That's it. There was nothing very fancy about it where I was making certain models or making something on Excel. Just a very simple interviewing people, put their story on blogs, right? I was not even getting paid for it. In fact, I had to invest money my own. I have to invest for mic, I had microphone, I had to invest for traveling expense and everything. So any internship that you do at least gives you certain perspective. So I would say when you pick up a work, go ahead and start do it. Don't question the quality of it, right? But if you, let's say, don't want to do it, then please don't say that I lost an internship, right? Or I did not do that work. Don't be in two minds wherein say I did not even pick the company and I always complain about not getting an internship, right? So do something, start from somewhere, you will get experience, right? It's like a chicken and egg situation कि हमें इंटर्नशिप चाहिए एक्सपीरियंस के लिए और अच्छी कंपनीज को इंटर्नशिप देने के लिए हमसे एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए, राइट? सो आप कहीं से तो आपको स्टार्ट करना ही पड़ेगा टू गेट दैट एक्सपीरियंस, अदरवाइज हाउ वुड दैट एक्सपीरियंस कम इन, राइट? सो स्टार्ट फ्रॉम समवेयर. डोंट फोकस अ लॉट ऑन कि कोई काम छोटा बड़ा नहीं होता है, right? So don't focus on that and focus on maximizing your learnings from whatever you do. If you start doing that, then I think you are sorted for life.
Yes, so Nitya says, what are your thoughts on receiving stock options as a form of compensation when companies are offering employees stock options in exchange for a salary?
Very good question. Surprised by the quality of questions you guys are asking. Hope my board does not start asking these questions. So I issue stock options to our new employees. See, that's what I said. The new middle class, which is becoming billionaires, if you look at it, these are becoming millionaires by the stocks that they are getting. Paytm went into IPO. About 100 200 people who were employees of Paytm became new millionaires in India, right? Zomato made into IPO. About 70 employees of Zomato became millionaires for the first time, right? So that's what I say. These middle class who never thought that they would earn quite a lot are becoming millionaires. And how is it happening? Because if you talk about salary will give you a fixed expense. 1 lakh, 1.5 lakhs. 1.5 lakhs, you can multiply it by 12 into whatever, like say you work for the next 20 years. Just multiply it by that. That's your total income, right? There's nothing plus or minus to it. Maybe let's say you get an appreciation, you can, let's say, increase it by 15 or 20 odd percent. But that's your, no matter how hard you work, no matter whatever you do, that's the money that you're going to earn in the next, let's say, 20-25 years. The options is something which is a wealth, right? Salary would always give you an income. Salary is never a wealth option. Salary would give you income. Salary comes in, we would spend it at 50% in some places, invest in some places, and it's gone. It's not a wealth. Wealth is something that's staying, that's there. You're not spending it. That's building over time. That is coming through your equity. That is coming through your stock options. That is coming through companies who can grow multi times. Your income can grow by, let's say, 15 times in the next 20 years. The company can grow by 100 times in the next 5 years, right? Or maybe 200 times. So that is where wealth gets created in the long term. So make it a mix. It's not that just take options and don't sit on anywhere, right? It's a paper wealth. So always have real wealth and paper wealth, right? Paper wealth is something which is building on paper. So just don't have paper wealth. Have something to spend as well, right? That is your real wealth. So yes, make it a good mixture of both of these accordingly, depending on the company to company.
So we have another question. How studying our various courses in colleges and networking with people go hand in hand? How can we manage it?
So question is networking and studying courses in colleges. How does it go hand in hand, right? Yeah. Everyone has 24 hours, guys. We can't complain that we have more hours or lesser hours or less than that. Everyone has 24 hours. When I was in college, I was doing courses. I was being a part of societies. I was traveling as well. We were in, of course, a COVID-free world. Traveling as well. I was sort of actively internship. I had an internship at FAD as well, right? More than that, I was also sort of learning. I was also doing stand-up comedy to sustain my career. So 6-7 different things I was doing. I was exploring, and it's just about management. It's just about prioritization. You have to prioritize your work and change accordingly. Don't make long-term goals. Make short-term goals in colleges. That 1 month or the next 2 months, I'm going to do this. Focus on this. Become a master of this, and go ahead. Right. Then next 2 months of your college, focus on a different strategy. That now I'm going to, let's say, work on a course. I'm going to master my course and then go ahead and do this. Make very, very short-term, ultra short-term goals in college, and then go ahead and prioritize and change those priorities accordingly. Right. So get a good mixture of both, of everything, of your courses, your college, your peer group, your internships, your whatever it is, right? And that is where you slowly build and become a more holistic person at the end of the day. But time is something you have to manage, right? So it's just 24 hours. See how you can save time. Wherever you get an opportunity to save time, because that's the biggest asset all of us have. So that is how you sort of do it.
Sambhav asked that what are the parameters for startups when you make your choices?
Got it. So what I'll do is, just give me a quick sec. I'll share something with you in which you'll get, it's a lot of clarity. So yeah, but anyways, to answer your question, see, startups are being primarily evaluated on 6 parameters, as I say, or the 6 T's I call it. Your team, the team which is building it, the technology you are using to solve a particular problem in the startup, your traction, what level of performance you have, your target market, who are you exactly targeting? Are you targeting millennials? Are you targeting older generation? Are you targeting young adults? Are you targeting middle class, upper middle class, whatever? The 5th you talk about is called as terms of investment, something that you would have been seeing a lot in Shark Tank. What's your valuation? What's the money that you are raising? What's the equity investor is getting against it, right? And the last thing we mostly talk about is something called as a 10x potential, which is, if I'm investing in a startup right now, does it have the potential to grow 10 times in the next 2 or 3 years? If it does not have, it does not make sense, right? Startups are high risk, high growth companies. So if you are putting so much risk, you would want growth as well to come in proportionately like that. So that's why if the company grows like 10x, 30% you pay to the government, 7x you made it for yourself. So that is why you say 10 times your capital in the next about the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Whenever you make any investment in a startup, when do you plan your exits? Like, is there any set period of time when you will be taking any exit?
So if a company is doing well, I would want I don't exit it. I stay there for like some time, because the longer I stay, the more money I make, right? So I would want the maximum I can stay. That is one thing. But second is, if a company is not doing well, it's also important that you take an exit before that, before they move into hot waters. So it's dependent on company to company. There's no right side to it. In some companies, we made money in 1 year. We made 7 times the capital in 1 year. We exited out of it because we were like, itna hi milega. That's it. We are exiting. In some companies, we made 4 times in 6 months, but we are still staying because we know that it's just 6 months. If we stay for the next 3 years, we'll see this company going through the roof. It depends on company to company. But you make your exit when you think that company has given you your required investment return, right? If you're happy with it, then go. It's similar to a stock market, right? When a stock has hit your stop loss, you know it's time to exit the market. When a stock has given you a breakout, you know it's time to buy, it's time to invest. Okay? Similar to that.
Sir, a
Any more
question is,
questions?
yes, sir.
No, go ahead. Let's take
Okay.
more questions.
So a question is there, do you think in education system there are flaws? The education impact and the overall environment of schools are creating more of an employee than an entrepreneur.
Very good question. I'll tell you with a joke, right? I say that education system has two things missing in India: education and system, right? So I think a lot of us have to, of course, walk that way. But my viewpoint would be, see, education would never create a very well-rounded professional. Education can give you entitlement to become one, or knowledge or guidance to become one. But at the end of the day, you have to go ahead and you have to make a career out of it. You can't be blaming that entrepreneurship is never taught in school, so I can't become an entrepreneur. There are people who've never gone to a school and become entrepreneurs, right? So it's all about how much you can take out of the education system, utilize the practical learnings, explore for yourself, and then go ahead and make a career out of it. So that is what matters the most, right? That you start learning those things by yourself and you start actually gathering experience. When I was studying finance and investment, I remember that the first years of my life, I was never taught about venture capital or private equity, right? That how does it work, how does startups work, and everything. By the time it was like investment banking came as a subject in my class, I'd already had enough knowledge of it. And the teacher was so impressed that she told me that you go ahead and start teaching through practical lessons into your college. So that is why I say, guys, networking is very important, that you network beyond what is there in college, right? That is when you extend the potential that a college can give you and create your own new potential, right? So yeah, just be like it, and don't focus a lot on the negatives, and just start focusing on the positives, and create new opportunities.
If we have an idea in our mind, what according to you should be the first step we have to take in order to move closer to convert our actual project? The first step that we can basically take.
Got it. I'm glad someone asked it. So if you have an idea, go ahead and like make a prototype of that idea, right? Prototype when I means is, let's say if I want to create a wallet, I would create, let's say, the first version of a wallet. This may not be the final wallet, but at least I've created something tangible. I can go ahead and sell to the customers that this is the first wallet that I created. So if you have an idea, create a prototype, register your company. In fact, today itself, I posted a video about registering your company. I will share it with you, everyone as well. Yeah, this is the video that in fact I just posted before the session on YouTube. So it's very important that you register your company as well, because if you don't go ahead and register your company, if you don't like legally form it, how would you of course grow it? You can't just grow it in Wayfair, right? You can't grow it like an idea. So if you have a product, you start getting customers, you start getting your registering a company, and then you start growing it. In fact, on this channel link that I posted, it beautifully covers how to start an idea from scratch. I've started a series. So this video that I've shared with you talks about how to register your company. But the two videos before this talks about how to, of course, one is how to have more customers, and second is how to develop your product. So watch these couple of videos that are out there, and you will get a lot of sort of knowledge around how to make your idea up from scratch. Yeah.
As we just saw in our previous question, that there are many student entrepreneurs, and you were just talking about incorporation of a company. Like, when do you think is the right time to incorporate? Like, there's a pre-incorporation period, and getting customers, or having a MVP or market fit product, or should we wait till we are ready with an MVP, or what?
So as soon as in fact, I have my own take on it, where I say that as soon as you start getting money for it, it's time to register, right? So because if you have to take money, you have to generate invoice, and how would you generate invoice if you don't have a registered company against it? So when you start getting money for your product or service, it's time now to register. And registration also gives you a credibility, right? If let's say you are selling a product to me, and I say that I want to research more about the company which is selling to me, and I can't see you guys are registered, that you don't have a legal standing, then I would be dubious, right? Whether this company is actually a hoax, or is it a real company as well. So that is why registering gives you that credibility that, okay, you are there, you're genuine, right? You're not fake, right? So register idly when you start getting money, but you see, it's like a necessary question in the exam. You have to answer it. Even if you answer it at third last or second last, you have to answer it. Ideal would be you answer it first, but then yeah, you have to answer that question. So it's very,
We
very
have seen
important.
like in a recent couple of months that many companies have raised pre-seed funding from ventures and angel investors. So in that I have been in a conversation with a couple of them that they were not registered and before the pre-seed funding, and they just got registered right before the pre-seed, like as soon as they got funding. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, so as I said, see, depends on company to company as well. But again, if you have to raise funds in a company, you have to be a registered company, right? You can't take funds without registration too. So some companies, when they are early, they would ideally, if they get an investor early on, then so it's a compulsory thing. You have to go on and register. There are no two ways about it. But I would ideally say that at the end of the day, see, you have to register, right? You have to, if you have to make a business out of it, you have to register. So the sooner the best, the better it is, and it's hardly a cost. You can get a company registration under 10,000 rupees for in India, which is private limited company, right? So you can go ahead and start registering whenever you feel like. Yeah.
So we have another question. It says that choosing a right team becomes very important to make a startup successful. Do you think we should look into people we want to make a team with?
Again, as I said, the most important T for us is team, right? That is the first T that I spoke for. Everything in the startup changes, right? Your funding changes, your business model changes, your technology changes, everything. The name of the company also changes sometimes. But the team which is building out there, that should not change. The passion which they are building out, the vision they have, the kind of conviction they have on the company, that should not change. So team is the most important factor. Whenever you're starting out, the first aspect I think you should focus on is building the right team. Because with the right team, you can build the right product. With the right product, you can get the right customer. But with an okay team, even if you build the right product, you can't sell it. You need a good team to sell that product as well. So have a right team. That is more like a long-term measure and helps you to grow the company as well in a longer time period.
There's a question from Sheena. So hard about being an entrepreneur? How is entrepreneurship any hard 5 job?
Yeah. I think we'll take just one or two questions because I have to actually sort of just quickly bounce off for another meeting. Yeah, everything is hard in life. Like entrepreneurship is hard, even job is hard. Your master's applications are hard, right? Your master's examinations are hard. Everything is hard in life. It's just about our measures of something that we want to do. If you actually want to become an entrepreneur, you will come through all the adversity that is out there. But if you don't want to become an entrepreneur, if you don't want to, let's say, do a master's, do a job, even if you get things on a platter, you would not enjoy it. That's about it. Everything is hard in life. But a good career is cherished when once you pass out the adversities. वो होता है ना कि मूवी तभी बनती है जब कहानी अच्छी होती है. So अगर आपकी कहानी में hard adversities आएंगी नहीं, तो how can you become a great entrepreneur, right? So yes, just don't focus on whether it is hard or soft or neutral or whatever it is. Just keep focusing on your journey. Don't sort of sometimes listen to all the hard things out there. Don't focus on a lot of hard things out there. It's very easy to focus on negatives because there are more of them, but it's hard to find out the positives because there are always less of them. So focus on maximizing the positives, discovering the positives, having a conviction on yourself at the end of the day, and just go ahead and make your startup happen. Right.
Well said, sir. I just think like if we can just take last question for the session. Many startups, like many funds, focus on both while valuing a startup, both on quantitative and qualitative measures. As like on your personal opinion, what do you prefer more, like valuing a team or the whether it is quantitative or qualitative? Like, what's your
It has to be a mix of both, right? You can't just have like a completely quantitative evaluation because numbers do change. If I say that on my Excel sheet that next year I'm going to do 10 crores in revenue, let's say if I hire a good team, a good potential team, they surpass the targets, they do 15 crores, then quantitative aspect changes, right? Again, in qualitative also same. If I say that I am hiring someone for the passion, if I'm hiring someone for, let's say, the integrity they bring in, let's say they after 6 months they don't find let's say a satisfaction in the company, they go ahead and leave it, right? So your satisfaction, your integrity, your passion, values, everything goes away. So it has to be a mix of both. But at the end of the day, it's a bit more on the people than numbers, right? If I have to be honest, because numbers, everything, as I say, changes, right? I hardly look at the projections that a startup send because I know that something in the air that could change. The what is tangible in front of me is the passion with which they are doing, and if they are doing it, then just go ahead and take a bet. I'm sure they will go through. They'll come through. That's how I sort of place it.
Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions. I would now like to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of the entire team at Nivesh. It is only because of your generosity to spare time for us that we were able to make this session a success. Your valuable words have enlightened us towards entrepreneurships and startups at a much wider scale. Once again, sir, I thank you for enriching our event with your presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Laksh. Thank you, Lakshay. Thank you, Sneha. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
With it, would you like to
No, I
add?
think Sneha, you have pretty much summed it up, but I just want to add, like, thank you so much, sir, for from Nivesh and from the whole Sherbinder College that you took the time for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Vidit. Thank you so much. And wish you guys the best. And please take care. And yep, all the best in whatever you do. Thank you.
I would
Guys,
request.
yeah.
I would request all the attendees to please stay in the meeting because we'll start with the next session in few minutes with Dr. Akhil Prasad sir, Director Boeing. So please they're in the meeting.
We'll just start in 5 minutes, I guess. It is requested to everyone to stay in the meeting, and we'll begin. Thank you so much, guys. All the participants are requested to stay in the meeting. We'll start in exactly 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Harshita. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I think you are on a mute.
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I think.
Sir,
Yeah.
am I audible, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
yes,
we
sir.
can hear you.
Audible?
I can't hear you guys. Can you hear me well now?
We can hear you, sir. How about us? Like, how about now?
Audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Are we audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Harshita, you can begin.
I'm good, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, Harshita. Thanks for inviting me to Sri Aurobindo. Although
Thank you.
I would have loved to be in person, but one of these days for sure.
Exactly.
Okay. So, hello and good evening, everyone. I am Harshita Khandelwal, the host for today's session. Feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all presented here with us for the FINVERSE 2022, organized by NIVESH, Finance and Investment Cell, Department of Commerce of Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi. Also, today we thank all of you who are present here with us. We really appreciate your presence at this difficult time when we could not meet face to face, but can interact with our virtual presence. So today we have our third speaker for the day. Joining us today is Dr. Akhil Prasad sir, who is Director, Country Council India and Company Secretary with Boeing International Corporation. He did BCom, LLB, LLM from Meerut University. He has done 2 PhDs, one in investor protection and other in media piracy, and has also a certificate of business administration from IE University, Madrid. Sir has been nominated as an Indian representative on the CSR committee of the IBA for the year 2014. Sir has worked across various industries in the area of legal, risk and compliance, taxation, regulatory, and corporate affairs. Sir has more than 25 years of vast experience as general counsel and board director of some really big companies like Xerox, Electrolux, General Motors, the Walt Disney, Fidelity, and now Boeing since 2013. Now, I request to all the attendees to hold back their questions until we begin with the Q&A session. And also, I would like to invite Mr. Vidit Chauhan, President of the Finance and Investment Cell of our college, to welcome sir. Over to you, Vidit.
Thank you, Harshita. I think sir have left the meeting. Okay, sir is here. Okay, thank you, Harshita. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sir for taking out the time from his busy schedule to be with us today. It's a great honor and a privilege to have you as an esteemed speaker for our fest. We are really honored and indeed a matter of pride for us to have you with us today. Now, without any other further ado, I'd like to hand over the platform to Dr. Akhil Prasad. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. So Harshita, and give me a little background about the audience today, like whether they're commerce students or what is the background of the student.
Around like majority of them will be the commerce students who will be studying BCom honors in our college.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So I'm just going to about to share my screen. 1 second. Hope you are able to see my desktop.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you everyone for this wonderful opportunity to invite me to Shri Aurobindo College. And one of the things which I wanted to discuss with you today, and which is very, very critical, to develop as a good person, individual, a professional. I think it is very, very important for all of us that each one of us should have leadership skills, and we should have entrepreneurial skills. So, whenever, if we are in um, job, or we are in business, or in whatever field we are in, I think it is very, very critical for us to understand um, what is it that it takes to be successful. A successful person will always be a strong and a effective leader. And to be successful, even in business and in job, it is very, very essential that somebody should also have very strong entrepreneurial skills. So this is exactly what I wanted to do. And what I will encourage you to do is, all of you are very, very adept at the OTT today. So one of the companies I would definitely recommend you should watch on the OTT platform, and you can find this on the Disney Hotstar, is a story about the Walt Disney Company. And the Walt Disney Company, we all know, is a very the Mickey Mouse we are very familiar with. But most of us, we do not know that Mickey Mouse was what Walt Disney had started with. But ultimately, the vision that the Walt Disney had was of theme parks. So he was very passionate about cartoon characters, and he was very passionate about taking the Mickey Mouse to greater heights. And that is why he thought about a theme park. So he perhaps, if you were to see that film, watch that series, it's a complete series on Hotstar under the Disney section. It talks about the time, this was 1920s, 30s, when he wanted to make a big theme park. And many people said that you are a fool. And many people said that, you are bound for failure, because the kind of investment which a theme park would entail was simply not financially possible. So his brother was Roy Disney, and Roy Disney was the chief financial officer of the company, but he supported his brother. So Roy Disney was the elder brother to the Walt Disney, and Walt Disney was a visionary, and he always dreamt about cartoon characters. He always lived within the cartoon characters, but he had great conviction in him that he is going to be successful not only with a cartoon character of Mickey Mouse, but to build a theme park. And in fact, in California, he built 2 theme parks, and then he built another one in Florida, and then he built another one in Tokyo, and then in Shanghai, and then Paris, and all that. But the biggest thing about the Walt Disney was, and I worked for this company for 3 years as the general counsel for the Walt Disney, was his vision. His vision and his leadership, how he effectively communicates to his team, how he make them see a larger vision about the organization. And when everybody starts to see that vision, which a leader brings forward, is when you start believing in yourself. That, well, this is something my leader is telling me. And this leader is not only telling me, the leader is also giving me a path. The leader is also showing me the way. The leader is also telling me how it will be done. So then you start to believe in that story. And that exactly the same thing happened. And, Disney was very, very fortunate to have good leaders after Walt Disney. He died in 1967. And after that, they were in a lot of problem mentally, because people think, what will happen if a leader dies and there is no visionary left in the organization. But that is exactly what Disney, the Walt Disney himself did, that he not only was himself a big leader, but he also developed leadership among his other team members. And that is how the companies, they live on forever. Because if it were to be a one-person company, and he or she does not develop a leadership team, or he or she does not develop leadership in other people, what if that person dies, or that person leaves the organization? Does that mean that the company will fall? No. And that is exactly what is our topic today, that we have to learn that today and tomorrow, you may be a professional, you may set up your own independent practice, you may set up your own independent business, you may join an organization and want to become a CEO of the organization. One thing you have to definitely think about is you have to not only think about your own leadership, but you also have to think about leadership of others, and you have to develop that leadership. So cut to 2015 and 2015, 2014, this was 2005, 2006, when this gentleman on your screen, Bob Iger, he was the chief financial officer of Disney, and his boss, Michael Eisner, he had some problems, with the family of Disney. And he realized that the problems should be done away, and he took the leadership role. So the family promoted him, the shareholders promoted him, and Bob Iger, from the CFO position, because of the leadership skills he had, he was promoted to the CEO of the organization, and he completely transformed the organization. So first thing what he did was he developed a team on the right. So all these people that you see on the right, whether it's the CEO himself, or the CFO, or the HR leader, or the finance leader, Bob Iger gave them a lot of mentorship, a chance to develop, a chance to voice their views. So one thing is very, very important in today's world is everybody should have a voice in the organization. So if you are a practicing chartered accountant, or if you are a practicing lawyer and you are having an office, a junior lawyer or a junior CA or a junior architect or a senior architect, everybody has a right to be a leader. And everybody has a right to contribute to an idea. And that is exactly what leadership is. You have to develop not only one mind, but you have to develop the entire organization so that good ideas always come up and the organization continues to grow. So what did Bob Iger do as a leader? He not only transformed the theme parks for Disney, he not only brought forward the television business, he not only brought forward the consumer products, the apparel, the stores, the Disney stores products, but he also did a lot of acquisitions. So he acquired Pixar. So Pixar, was a Steve Jobs company, for wonderful animation movies. He bought Pixar. He tied up with Steve Jobs for Pixar and Disney. And then he acquired, a company called Star, from Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch has the largest, Fox TV, and Disney acquired Fox to become the largest broadcaster. And then he also acquired Marvel Studios. So the most famous, the Avenger movies that you enjoy, the Marvel, the entire series, the intellectual property was bought by Bob Iger. So what he did was, what Walt Disney did, he moved away from the Mickey Mouse to theme park, and Bob Iger transformed the organization to a complete solution and entertainment company. And that is how he grew. And he grew not because he was a leader. He grew because everybody working alongside him, they were leaders and they were contributing for the development of the organization. This is a very second case study, is I would like to tell you is, one thing is vision, which is very, very important for a leader. The second big thing, which is very, very important in a good leader, is the courage, the can-do attitude, that I can get this done. So visionary is what we saw in Disney's case. Now, what has happened here is, a company called Lenovo, and Lenovo was a small Chinese company manufacturing, computers, but they wanted to acquire IBM. And IBM was about 15 to 20 times the size of Lenovo. And they wanted to do an acquisition to acquire an IBM. So if somebody were to tell you that I'm looking to acquire, a company which is 20 times bigger than myself, most of your managing team will laugh at you. They will say this cannot be done. I don't know how many people have watched this movie called 1983 about Kapil Dev winning the World Cup. So Kapil, the World Cup, when we went in 83, India has just won one match in 75 and 79 World Cup. But when Kapil Dev was interviewed in London, there was just 2 or 3 journalists. And they asked Kapil Dev, why are you here? He said, I have come here to win the World Cup. So everybody laughed at him. So something similar happened, when the Lenovo board decided to acquire IBM, and everybody laughed at them. And they said, how can you do this? IBM, you will never be able to acquire. But that is exactly what they did. Because IBM was wanting to move away from manufacturing of hardware, and they sensed an opportunity, Lenovo. They got their investors together. They convinced the management team that this can be done. But look at the slide immediately below. So when they were looking to acquire IBM, the 100% sales of Lenovo came from China. But after 2 years, just look at the geography expand, how they expanded the geography. Just 36% from China, but rest of the world was contributing to 70% of the revenue. So how did they transform? They transformed because of the courage. That we have the courage to do this, and we will do this. And that is exactly what should be demonstrated by a leader. So if somebody were to ask me, what do the Fortune 500 companies talk about are the essential aspects of a leader? The first thing is what we saw is a visionary. The second thing, what we discuss, is showing strong confidence in others. So it's not only about my confidence, it also is about your confidence, because you are a part of my organization. And unless you have the same confidence as I have, we will not be able to pull it through. We will only be pull it through once we have that capability and confidence to do it together. The third thing, which is very important for a leadership, is to expect high performing standards. So somebody, did a Nykaa, and Nykaa, what did Nykaa do? Nykaa came up with an IPO, which was the shares, she became one of the richest Indian, and because she believed and she expected high confidence and communication and performance from her employees. And everybody saw common vision. They came up with an IPO, and it was a huge success. So expectation of a high performance is very, very important by a strong leader. And what you have to constantly drive is you have to have vision and mission of an organization. So in Disney's case, the vision and mission for Walt Disney was theme parks. Bob Iger's vision and mission was, I have to create the largest entertainment company in the world. IBM's or Lenovo's vision was to acquire IBM and become the largest computer manufacturer in the world. So that vision and mission has to be very, very clear, and it should be very clearly articulated to each and every employee in the organization. And every employee should see what is that common goal that we all are working together. It does not mean that the vision only has to be for leaders or senior people. The vision has to be for even junior employees, middle management and senior management. Because remember, in an organization, it's always a pyramid. Senior leaders will be very few, middle management will be higher in number, and the largest number is the workforce. So if you do not motivate your workforce, or you do not pin them on the vision and mission of the organization, you will not be able to deliver result. Let's see the example of how important battles were won, or how battles are won today. When we are fighting against, say, China, or we are fighting against Pakistan, or there are other wars, Hitler fighting against Russia and all that. So the soldiers had to be motivated. What is the purpose of this fight? The purpose of this fight is to win against the Russians. The purpose of this fight is to win against the Chinese or the Pakistanis. So it's not about a general or the defense minister making a leadership role. The vision and mission that we have to win the war, Jai Bharat Mata Ki Jai, has to be on the border. And that vision is very, very important. And that has to be understood very, very clearly by everybody. I'm giving you an example, but it is so relevant in corporate sector also, that when chips are down, especially when we are fighting against coronavirus, when the morale of the organization is down, when people have lost their family members, when the chips are down, it is very, very important for leaders in the organization to motivate the team. And that motivation is very, very important to make an effective organization. And this is true irrespective of the fact whether it's a military or whether it's corporate sector, whether it's your consultancy, whether it's your law firm, whether it's your chartered accountancy firm, whatever it may be. All these 5 bullets that you see on your screen are very, very important. The 5th important bullet is personal sacrifice. So it's not that I tell my colleague that you have to work 12 hours. You have to deliver 12 hours work for me today. He or she will work for you for 12 hours if I put 16 hours. So as a manager, it is my responsibility to be available to work with the team. When we are burning the midnight oil, the midnight oil has to be burned together. So unless we burn the midnight oil together, we will not be successful as a team. So that personal sacrifice, determination, and courage has to come from everybody. So, when we talk about the Indian Army and when the country is at war, many, soldiers, they are expected to be at the front. And whether it's an anniversary, whether it's somebody's blessed with a child or it's somebody's birthday, the leaves will not be granted, even if there's somebody's marriage in the house, because there has to be a personal sacrifice. People are sacrificing, personal gains for the common or a better advantage and for better good. So all these 5 things are something which is extremely necessary to become a successful leader. And then, when you acquire all these things, what you achieve that you are able to fight in an uncertain and a fast changing environment. Imagine the business situation 5 years ago when there was no coronavirus. People had not thought about a coronavirus. But today, people realize that if there was no Amazon, if there was no Flipkart, if there was no Zomato, your lives would have come to a standstill. So that ability to deal with uncertainty, to deal with a fast changing environment, it is very important that the leadership should be sound and it should be extremely strong. So one example, everybody knows about Uber. We have experienced Uber, we have used Uber. So when we talk about a leader, there is always a value which is ascribed to leadership. And what I mean is that when Travis Kalanick, he was fired by the Uber board because of some irregularities, because of some sexual harassment charges, all those things. He was the founder of Uber. He was the brand of Uber. All investors were looking upon him, as he's the one who is the main person behind the show. But he suddenly was asked to resign, and then a new person came on board. So just look at how stock price, how they behaved. The stock price or the valuation of the company, it dived. What would have happened when Microsoft, Bill Gates stepped down? What would have happened if Steve Jobs, he died? The expectation of leadership in a vacuum is the value of the organization, of the value of the leader. So when Steve Jobs left, he died, perhaps the company was valued at 300 or 400 billion dollars. But then when he died, the value, people thought that there is going to be no innovation. But recently, it became the most valuable company ever. Trillion dollar worth of valuation it achieved. So that is how people ascribe value to a leadership and valuation of a CEO. So looking at these 5 cardinal leadership skills, I would like to discuss, 2 things here. One is obviously Indra Nooyi. So we are very fortunate that Indian leaders are leading global corporations. But one example I would like to take off is of Indra Nooyi. Indra Nooyi, we know, has been a global CEO of PepsiCo. And PepsiCo, we know, has been, making colas and fried food. So when she was elevated to the role of a CEO, one of the first things she told her board of directors was that I'm going to transform the company and I'm going to sell products which are healthy. So that was a huge shock to the shareholders, because they said we have been making so much money in the past. We have been selling colas, bottled water. We have been, selling fried food in terms of snacks and snackers, etc. But she said that the growth in cola food, the growth in snacking food is single digit. But the growth of herbal products, healthy products, is double digits. So we are missing an opportunity by not selling products where there is a double digit growth. And that is where she thought we should also be selling juices. We should also be selling healthy food. And she took a personal attack from the shareholders and the board that she has to transform the organization, which she did. And that is how, PepsiCo started to generate higher profits than Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola eventually followed PepsiCo in terms of dealing with health issues, dealing with, selling with products which were more, which were healthier products. So that was her conviction, her courage, her sacrifice to, take the company forward. And then, obviously we have, so Sundar Pichai, we know, everybody knows in Google what he has achieved. But what not many people know is about Mary Bara, the lady, this one, you see here. She is the global CEO of General Motors. And I had the fortune to also work for General Motors many years ago. And General Motors, for a record 35 years, has been on the top of the Fortune 500 list. But one year came and it became bankrupt. And General Motors going for bankruptcy after having been about 35 years on top on Fortune 500 was a big shock to the corporation and the employees. And she analyzed the reason for that is General Motors was selling multiple brands. They were selling Opel, they were selling Vauxhall, they were selling Buick, they were selling Chevrolet, so many brands. And they had a large number of factories, no interdependency, no synergies. And what she decided was that she will cut away or she will stop production in many countries, including India. So many people said she's out of her mind. How can you ignore a country which is 1.3 billion people, which is about 1/6 of the total global population? She's making a big mistake. But then she decided that this has to be done, and she took a personal courage and a sacrifice to do away with manufacturing facilities in Thailand, in Indonesia, in India, and focus on a couple of brands. So she did away with many brands, came back to just 2 brands, brought focus on manufacturing, and the company came back into profits. So they are visionary, they have personal courage, they are able to convince the management team, they are able to see a common goal, that this is what we need to achieve and this is how we will achieve. And as a leader, they were holding hands together to bring out companies out of a lot of problems. Of course, Sundar Pichai, we know that from a software company, he's transforming. He tried to transform company into a product company and into a services company. That is where they continue to grow, and they are acknowledged across the world. Some of the many people have written and read books of important people who have been visionaries. So I thought I should highlight a couple of thoughts from leaders like Steve Jobs. So what does Steve Jobs tell us about the leadership lessons? What were his leadership lessons? So many people would have seen his film also, on his biography. And if you have not, please do that, because his leadership was very, very different. So from what I have told you, from what he was, I think it's a different dimension of leadership. And that is why I have chosen Steve Jobs' leadership style. So he was a person who was focused. He wanted to simplify things. So when we say simplify, do we all remember an iPod? And what an iPod was it did not have buttons. A Walkman had many buttons. Other companies had a lot of complicated instruments, but he designed an iPod, and which transformed the music industry. It transformed the entertainment industry. And then he went ahead and converted that iPod into an iPhone. So he transformed the telecommunication industry. He converts the media industry and the telecommunication industry. And then he says, take responsibility end to end, which perhaps if you watch his autobiography or if you watch his biography, perhaps pushes you to makes you to think whether it has been a right leadership, because he was a very determined person, a very hard taskmaster. What he thinks has to be done. So that is another dimension of leadership, but that leadership is very risky in my view. He has been very successful. I am nobody to judge Steve Jobs, but in today's world, when you are making global corporations, there has to be a lot of empathy which has to go into a leadership, so that people are able to relate, and then push for perfection. So that push for perfection is something which is not very easy to achieve. So when a Sundar Pichai is pushing for perfection, when Indra Nooyi is pushing for perfection, and a Steve Jobs is pushing for perfection, there may be different leadership styles there. And we have to be very clear that, the leadership styles are, encouraging people, not discouraging people. And then one more, thoughts I would like to take is by Kearns Goodwin, which is Lincoln and the Art of Transformative Leadership. And that is where, they have said that you have to anticipate contending viewpoints. So it is very, very critical for, all of you to understand that when we are in a discussion, when we are in consultation, there cannot be a progress unless there is a contending viewpoint. So people have to challenge you, people have to contradict you. And when you contradict each other, when you challenge each other in a positive way, only then there can be a constructive discussion. So for a leadership to develop, a leader should definitely encourage contending viewpoints, because it is very important that whenever you are doing or dealing with a business proposition, you need to think from all sides, the 360-degree view analysis. And this is very, very important that contending viewpoint should be encouraged. Second thing is very, very important, which is when to hold back and when to move forward. So this is this comes from any military in the world, that it does not mean that if you are in a battle, you keep on moving forward. You have to also step back to win. And that is exactly what is also very relevant in corporate sector, as to when to hold back and when to move forward. What is your strategy? And that strategy has to be very, very effective and implementable. The third important thing for a very important leader is to refuse to let past resentments fester. So what has been in the past, let bygones be bygones. It does not mean that if somebody has not done a job well today, that person will not be effective tomorrow. The person will always have some development areas, and those development areas is something that should definitely be encouraged to be improved upon. And that is what I would recommend, that always keep an open mind. Your employees, your colleagues, don't make judgments about such person, because you never know what is that spark a person requires to become more effective in terms of leading an organization. And the third one and the last one on this one under Lincoln transformative leadership is you have to win over your skeptics. So there may be a boardroom, there may be a management team meeting, there may be a client meeting where you have 50 to 100 people, but then try and achieve your goal, which a leader has thought about. And by not arguing, by trying to explain, being patient, and try to collectively come to a solution. So this is the important list, which my professor, when I did my program with the advanced management program with the Wharton School, this was in 2019, but our professor gave us this list as to what should be a leader's checklist. So there are 16 items on the list, but for your reference, I will quickly take you through about the ones in the red, which I think are absolutely critical. You have to think and act strategically. So whatever you are doing, you should have a strategy in place. So when you are students, your strategy should be clear, definitely, to become clear your program, your graduation, or pursue. But you should always have a plan for the future. That what if I do after graduation? What is it that I want to pursue? It does not mean that what you decide today, and if you do not achieve tomorrow, it's end of the world. Because priorities change, opportunities change, and your strategy should be adaptable to those changes. Then you have to convey your character. Character today, so I think there has been a huge transformation in how businesses are conducted globally. Many people think in our own country we are about at the 85 number in the corruption index out of 185 countries. We have come up a long way, but still I think it is being perceived that India is a corrupt country to do business in. It depends on us. For example, it's my 27th year in the corporate sector, and I have worked for some and I have a slide on that, which is the last slide. I've been fortunate to work for world's leading companies. And I have never, ever thought of bribing anybody. Maybe it's my own upbringing. Maybe it's the companies that I've worked for. Maybe it has taken us a lot of time to get things done. But giving a bribe has never been a solution, because once you give it, then you are tempted to repeat it. And it builds or labels you as a character, that this is my character of getting things done by bribing or doing things which are not right. So we have to build our character. It depends upon us, and that is exactly that the role that should be of the HR department. So if tomorrow you become HR leaders, it is your responsibility to build the character of the organization. And an organization is nothing but a collection of individuals, professionals. So you have to find not only who's the brightest, you have to also find who has the strongest character. Because you may not need a brightest or the topper, the person who tops, but you need a person who is very effective and has a very strong character in the organization. The seventh item is you have to decide decisively. Take decisions. Don't. The cardinal principle of today is, and tomorrow is, people who are able to do many things, or who are multitaskers, and that you will be able to achieve only if you take decisions decisively. If you keep things pending, you will realize that I've not been able to achieve. So many people ask me this question is, how do we achieve a work-life balance, or how do we become multitaskers? I think the cardinal thing there is, we are perhaps not taking decisions quickly. And if we are not taking decisions quickly, perhaps the workload increases and we are not being able to do justice to our time. And that is, so remember, we saw the slide Sundar Pichai. So what is the difference between me and Sundar Pichai? Huge. He is a leader of a global corporation. I'm a leader of an Indian corporation. But he has 24 hours, I have 24 hours. He may be doing something which is very different to what I'm doing in those 24 hours. So that is why he's where, and I am where what I am, and somebody is where he or she is. So how those 24 hours have to be utilized is by taking decisions decisively. It is very, very important. Item number 10 is take charge and lead the change. What Steve Jobs also says, that take accountability and make that change happen. 12 is strengthen leadership in oneself and others, which is the opening part of my session today. That what the Walt Disney did, that's what the Bob Iger did, that's what the Lenovo team did, that they develop leadership in others and also in themselves. Collectively, we will become better, not individually. Then 15 is place common interests first. So this is very, very important. Today, what we do is, in Shri Aurobindo, your teacher will give you a project and somebody may say that I have a headache, I can't do this. So out of those 10, 3 will drop out. So your strength was given as 10, but you are working at 70% capacity. Then some people will say, I have a wedding in the family. You are dropped to now 5 or 6. So you have reduced your capacity from 10 to 5. But that task of 10 has to be completed. So now you will need a 200% effort to achieve the same goal. So what is important is that if everybody who has been dropping out or not taking, participating in a common purpose, they have to look at a larger picture. And they have to say that by dropping out, I'm putting other team members to a disadvantage. They will have to work at 120% or 150% or 200% capacity to do that work, which we could have done at our 100% capacity. So that is very, very important, that common interest has to take a priority. And then you have to serve as a general manager. It's not that you are only thinking about yourself or your team, but you have to think about the organization as a whole. So on decision making also, I will not delve too much into this aspect, but conceptually is that today what people think is organizations say, I want 100% consensus, right? So for example, Boeing wants to launch a new plane. And this is a plane which has never been made before. No competition, no history, nothing. It's a pilotless plane. And some people will start to say, oh, well, without pilot, it will fall. How will it fly? Where do we have the technology? The worries will start to come. And then you prepare a plan that this is how step 1 to step 150. And if we reach 150, we will develop a pilotless plane. But then there will be some people will say, I want 100% consensus on this 150 steps. So this kind of leadership to me perhaps will never work. There are companies like Elon Musk, SpaceX. There are companies like Blue Origin, which have been developed by Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic Group, who have now gone into space travel. And that space, these companies never had a history of making rockets. In last 8 years, 9 years, they've been able to do what NASA could not do. They have been able to do what Boeing and Airbus could not do. Is because of fast decision making, not slow decision making. Companies which continue to be slow decision makers will not progress as much as companies who are fast decision makers. And imagine if you look at the list of the startups going to unicorns, why is there an uptick of so many startups getting so much investment? Is because some companies are taking decisions decisively, not waiting for 100% consensus. They are moving fast. They are developing and doing things which are, the same example I gave you, Sundar Pichai versus myself, same 24 hours, but he has been able to achieve what not many other people have been able to achieve. So things like those, it is very, very important that, you continue to take advice, think fast and move forward. This slide captures, this is a HBR cover page, but it has some very, very important things that how do you become a very effective global manager? So the cover tells you everything, that you have to demonstrate leadership, you have to manage risk, you have to look after your customers, you have to have global competitiveness, you have to deal with regulators, and you have to constantly evaluate the economics of the business decision. So in our case, one of the recent things which unfortunately happened, there were 2 air crashes. People know about Ethiopian Airlines and Lion Air. And it was a very unfortunate moment for the company as well as people who suffered. And we had about 180 regulators across the world whom we had to deal with in terms of demonstrating that our products, the planes, are safe. And that is exactly what we did. We went through the entire cycle. Our leadership was very transparent. We managed all risks of air safety. We evaluated all our planes, whether the planes have all safety features intact, what are the risk factors related to our planes. We were constantly in touch with our customers that, well, 77 MAX is a great plane. These incidents have happened, but we are taking care. So we maintained that communication channel with our customers that believe in the brand, believe in the product. We will, get through the situation. Then global competitiveness and regulation. So we had to deal with, global customers, global competition like Airbus and other companies, and then regulators, or something which we have to demonstrate every day that this is the report, this is the test, these are, so they will give us a laundry list. So Russia will give something else, China will give something else, America will give something else, United Kingdom would give something else, and we have to manage all that. We could not have ignored anything of that sort. And then we were able to convince everybody in 1.5 to 2 years, and the planes have started to fly again. So that is very important in any business, in every business that we are dealing with, is to be a successful leader and a successful person. This slide also talks about some of the important aspects which an entrepreneur, I'm not saying only a employee, but in your own practice, in your own business, in your own ecosystem, you have to have some of the very, very essential aspects, as you have to thrive in uncertainty. So the biggest uncertainty of all times in our generation in last 100 years is COVID, of course. And we have all learned to live in this uncertainty. And we are, whether it's ordering food, whether it's education, whether it's improving our skills, everything we are, thanks to EdTech, we are trying to improve ourselves day by day. Then we have to constantly, keep on the creative thinking. We have to analyze the opportunities which are available. We have to be open for any kind of experience. We have to be persuasive. We have to have a strategic focus. So all these things are very, very essential that, in today's world, you cannot be in a situation when you are not thinking about an organization. And when I'm saying you are not thinking about the organization, I'm saying about the entire leadership, about the entire organization which should be thinking. We should be very, very sensitive that no matter what happens to us, we will be in a position to, take care of all situations. This is another slide, which talks about the interdependencies of various skills or the various traits of leadership and, successful CEO. For example, whether motivation, here, if you start from here, then you have to enable others by value creation, meeting commitments, reliability, proactive decision-making processes, by aligning people's goals and objectives, thinking with speed and agility. You have to be a salesperson. Salesperson does not mean you are selling goods or services. Salesperson is you are constantly on the alert in trying to attract customers and satisfying your customers. So sale is not just one activity. Customer service is a related activity. So the entire thing has to be managed very effectively. And then you should be willing to be, survive in uncertain times. So whenever you do a business or whenever you start your practice or whether you are in employment, challenge your company or customer organization as to what if the world were to come to a standstill, will you still survive? And if you are able to say yes, no, and how, if you are able to determine a how, that is the best thing you can do for yourself and your organization, that you develop a survival toolkit as a strong leader. So this again is an HBR study, and Harvard Business Review tells you what are the most important skills which should be there in a leader. So if you focus on top 5, which is 38, 37, 36, 35, 33%, is motivation. A person should be able to motivate. That should be one, that is the highest leadership skill. Then you have to have integrity and honesty. Remember I was talking about, doing business in India, 85 our rank, but our integrity and honesty is what people think. We should be honest. We should be solving problems and analyzing issue. A leader has to solve a problem, not shift a problem. So we have to, and leader does not mean a CEO. Leader is everybody in the organization. So whatever work you get in Shri Aurobindo as a student, you have to solve a problem, not divert a problem. Then you have to drive for results. A leader is expected to drive a result. And then communication is very, very important, that you have to communicate very, very effectively within your team. Then there are also some of the traits of what are some of the serial entrepreneur. What is it which is very, very essential to be a successful entrepreneur? First thing is persuasion, then leadership, then personal accountability, goal orientation, and interpersonal skills. What people do not do well also is here empathy. So when you are in a startup is, people think that if you are in a startup, you should be in a madhouse. That is not true. So there has to be an empathy in the organization. People should feel comfortable. There may be a lot of pressure. Pressure does not mean it should be a madhouse. Work pressure should be there, but if the environment is good, you will be able to solve a problem. Then planning and self-management. These are some of the things which people do not put focus on, but which should be put a focus on. So how do you develop? So some people should ask me that question. This is a good discussion, but how do you develop a strong leader? And this is what, again, HBR in 2007, the Harvard Business Review tells us that these are the questions that you should ask yourself. Which people and experiences in your early life had the greatest impact on you? So this is a question as to what is holding me back. Is there something which has happened in my past, in my family, which I think have my parents been telling me that you can't do this? Have my brother or sister or somebody in my family telling me that you are no good? That may be their perception. That is not necessarily true. If you are studying hard, working hard, there is nothing you cannot unlearn or learn. So ask that question. Then what other tools do you use to make a self-awareness? People, do we do self-awareness? Do we do a introspection? Do we put goals? Do we know where we lack? Do we know what are our strengths, weaknesses, and threats? We should develop one. Then what are your most deeply held values? Because value comes from family. Value comes from your friends. Value comes from people around you. What are those values that you want to really bring forward in life and bring to your organization? Is something you should, and these are all questions. It does not have one answer. It could have many answers, and those different answers will make a different leader. And that is exactly what you should ask yourself. Then what motivates you extrinsically? What is it that is your motivation? Is it education? Is it creating a brand? Is it creating a product? Is it creating an experience? Is it a service? So you should ask those questions. What kind of support team do you have? So if you have started a consultancy practice, what are the support systems that you have developed in your organization? What is it you want to have in your own company, in your own team? Is your life integrated, being the same person in all situations, or you deviate in a situation? Which means try to introspect in a way that no matter what situation of life you are in, you are steady. Have that steady mind. Don't get disturbed by different situations in life. What does being authentic mean in your life? So to me, I think what I'm here before this forum is exactly what I will be in office. And this is exactly how I will be in my home. So if you are an individual, should you change when you are in office? Should you change when you are, a teacher? Should you change if you are a student? That personality should not change. That personality should remain the same. There should be no masks, we should wear. That this is my mask when I'm in office, this is my mask when I'm in school, this is my mask when I'm in at workplace. You should try and be the same person, because if you are true to yourself, that is the best state of mind you can achieve. And then what steps can you take today, tomorrow, and over the next year to develop your authentic leadership? What are those changes that you need to make in yourself to become a more acceptable leader? So coming to, last few slides for today is, we have seen in 2010, we had one unicorn. But when we look at 2020, there are so many, and 2021, there are so many, 2022, this number will be double. So what is it that people are doing? People are demonstrating leadership, not in themselves, but in everybody. They taking collective actions, decisive action, thinking fast, acting fast, making sacrifices, right? That is only way to be successful. What did Mukesh Ambani do? He inherited a fortune from his father, but built a 10 times bigger fortune, right? So it was not only he was not only into petrochemicals and mining, refining. That is what his father did, but he created Geo, not only Geo Telecom, but Geo Platform, and and retail. So he has been, taking decisions. And he's not very vocal also. You will not see him making a budget analysis also. So in economic times, you will find all leaders making a view. You seldom hear Mukesh Ambani talking about anything, right? So that's his leadership. And is he effective? I think the richest man, perhaps. Flipkart and Walmart decided to merge. Walmart, we know, is the world's largest retailer and the largest Fortune 500 company. They took over Flipkart. And why they did that? Because they wanted to also be in e-commerce. So Walmart was into retail, but they never had e-commerce. So they put in $16 billion into Flipkart. They acquired the company. And now they have a retail business. They also have an e-commerce business. So that is another leadership decision-making, that we are not satisfied despite being the top company of the world, the top in Fortune 500. We have to grow larger. So with 500 billion plus revenue, Walmart was expanding at 3%. But imagine the growth percentage of Google and Amazon, right? So they knew that that day is not far when Amazon is going to, go much beyond Walmart. And they sensed that opportunity, and they wanted to build their own e-commerce business, which they eventually did. And so that is another decision-making process. Jet Airways, despite country's largest aviation company, went down. It became bankrupt. It was not able to pay employee dues. The pilots were on road. The employees were on road. So whether it was the right leadership, whether it was the right leadership demonstration from the promoters, perhaps no. You can never let an organization fail. So, but it did not happen, and it was a disaster in terms of leadership. Our own Cafe Coffee Day, the promoter, such a fantastic organization he has created. He created a Starbucks of India, but he suddenly quit and committed suicide. Now the wife has taken over, and the wife is bringing back the company to, normalcy, which he could also have done. But perhaps the leadership quotient was missing there. So this is my last slide. And again, a big thank you to Shri Aurobindo Group, university and the colleges to, bring me forward. I'm a very, very strong believer in terms of what education does to you. And what I can always tell you with my own example is what you see below my picture and what you see on the right side is not what I had control of. the only control I had was of the middle column, which is my education. And what I can say is that education should be a continuous process. I'm not indicating that all of you should be mad like me in pursuing 11 or 12 degrees, but I think what I will always tell you is that keep your learning curve very high, because if you keep your learning curve high, the left side, which is your employer or your clients, will always come for people who are constantly learning. And your right side, which is this is not what I teach, but this is what I call I learn. Because if I come here and teach you, I will also get an opportunity to at least study twice as much. To teach for 1 hour, you need 3 hours of preparation, right? So, which is a wonderful opportunity for me also, that one should keep one's mind sharp by constantly learning and learning from people. So happy to take any questions, any questions that you may have. But thank you very much again for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very, very much. That was very insightful session. It's been an honor to have you here today with us, sir. It was such a great and informative session. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has gained some knowledge today. Concluding the session, I would like to thank all the participants, our panel today, and our guest of honor, Dr. Akhil Prasad, sir, for his precious time and wise words. Once again, thank you so much, sir. Vidit, would you like to say something?
No, Harshit, I think you have pretty much concluded it. But I would just like to add on that I really appreciated that you took the time from your busy schedule to address our participants, our attendees, our students of our college. It's really means a lot. Thank you so much, sir. And we would love to be connected with you in the future as well. I think we'll be able to fetch so much knowledge from you. I think it will be great. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I think I can see some Q&A. Can we take a couple of questions?
Sure, sir. Harshita?
Yes, sir, sure. Sir, there's a question from Costa. So India is one of the largest aviation markets. Despite this, why major civil aviation players like Boeing and Airbus are reluctant to set up a assembly unit in India for manufacturing of civil aircraft?
That's a very good question, and thank you, Costa, for asking this. I think the day is not far, when such assembly lines will definitely come to India. But it all depends on the business dynamics also, because if you see the overall market share for Indian aviation globally, I think India is about the revenue which comes from India in terms of civil aviation should be around about 8 to 9% of the total global market share. Although it's the largest growing, it will be the third or fourth largest in terms of flights from India, international flights to India. But still that, so when you want to set up a manufacturing facility, for example, if Maruti Suzuki wants to set up a factory in India, why they would set up a factory in India is because 40% of the revenue from Suzuki comes from India. And if the similar thing were to happen for the civil aviation business, I think we will also see these manufacturing facilities coming to India. By the way, the full aircraft may not be manufactured here, but a lot of parts and components and services are being procured from India, which is a big thing, which never used to be there. But we have players like Bharat Forge, we have players like Tata Group, we have players like Mahindra Defense Systems and Mahindra Aerospace, who manufacture parts and components from India, which goes into the global supply chain of Airbus and Boeing. So we have made a start. We are in that direction, but perhaps we are 10 to 15 years away. And, I was in General Motors, as I said, and that is exactly what's happening at that time, that the global manufacturing, Thailand was bigger than India. But if you see today, Thailand is nowhere compared to India in terms of what we are manufacturing here on the automobile side. So I think things change very, very rapidly. So I think 10 to 15 years, it may be sooner, that we may see in next 8 or 9 years an aircraft being manufactured in India. You never know. Tata acquired, Air India. They may want to manufacture a plane in India. So you never know what things might be in future. But yes, I think we are in that direction. But thanks for your question.
Thank you, sir. That was such a great answer. So we have one more question here from Hitesh Kumar. How do you see the corporate governance and compliance regime changing during a pandemic? Do you see it evolving drastically post-pandemic?
So corporate governance and compliance regime, pandemic, I think there has been a greater focus. Greater focus because just to give you some examples, if I talk about health and safety of employees. So I think there has not been a greater focus than before. Today there is a greater focus than it was earlier. Organizations are talking about employees getting fully vaccinated. They are investing in vaccination of employees. There is a lot of CSR which is going in terms of in terms of providing medical aid, medical facility, vaccinators, and all those things like never before. And even in terms of governance, I think when people are working from home, the responsibility becomes even more greater. That you have to comply with all regulations. You don't miss the bus, or there should not be excuse that since people are working from home, they should be lax on compliance. So I think it becomes more challenging to get your teams together when you are not in office and still be able to focus a lot of attention. And that is, I think, most of my counterparts are busy doing that. Compliances are something which have grown. We have seen a lot of focus, which is today than it was before.
Great, sir. So would you like to answer some more questions, or shall we conclude?
I'm okay. We can, there are 7 or 8, we can quickly answer.
Okay. So there's another one. After studying as a company secretary, what made you choose the legal path, considering that you not only did a master's, but a doctorate in law as well?
So Sheena, that's a good question. I must say that perhaps I was very insecure in my earlier life, because what you see today is today's work product. But when I was a student, I faced a lot of hardships. I never, I failed in a lot of entrance examinations. I wanted to become a medical doctor. I could not get admission into any of the medical colleges despite trying very, very hard. I wanted to do an MBA after BCom. I could not get admission in any MBA college. So left with no option, I started to pursue CS. It was not my first choice. But when I started to do CS, something we called as a golden word called destiny. And that destiny was that I never failed in any exam of company secretaryship. So it was my destiny not to become a medical doctor. It was my destiny not to become an MBA, but it was my destiny to become a company secretary. And when I became company secretary and I tasted success, I thought I should now, get international knowledge in law. So I studied law in India, in England, in US, and I did PhD is because perhaps of, my insecurity that why I failed earlier, I should not do that in future. So perhaps that thought. And also, to learn more and more, as I grew, you see my companies that I work for. So each company had a different trigger, a different requirement. For example, my degree in my PhD in media piracy in law was because I was the general counsel for Walt Disney. And I knew that there were certain problems in the media industry. So I developed a research on media industry, which I converted into a PhD. And then, when I was with Xerox, that time, we were coming up with a IPO. And I thought that if I'm a successful company secretary, let me do a research on investor protection, which I converted into a PhD. So learning and then converting into academics is something which I, did simultaneously for a better learning.
Great, sir. Great. There's another question from Khushi. What particular learning points from individual sectors have helped you grow as a lawyer? And what will you advise someone who wants to achieve success in legal profession?
That's a great question, Khushi. And I would say that, and this is not only me being a lawyer, I think this applies to all of you and all of us, is we have to become a domain expert first. So my domain expertise is law. So so if you see my employers, there is no correlation between either of them. I have never repeated an industry. So before Boeing, Fidelity, then Disney, then General Motors, Electrolux, they are all unrelated companies. And I was very, very deliberate that I do not repeat an industry. And that is because I am fond of learning. Because when you go in a new organization, something which you have never done before, you tend to learn a lot. And I have been very passionate on not only the middle row of my chart that you see on the screen, but also on the left column on the chart, that when I'm working for a client, it has to be a new client. Because if I come to a new client, I will learn more. And that has been the driver. So it applies to all of you. So if you want to become a chartered accountant, if you want to become a marketing professional or a sales professional, so take an example of a sales professional. If you are a sales professional, you should be very good in e-commerce. You should be good in selling automobiles. You should be good in selling apparel, because you are a salesperson. You are not an industry expert. So I somehow think, let's not become an industry expert. Let's become an expert who can do anything.
Great, sir. One more question. It's from Madhav. What peculiar changes, governance, and compliance complexities do aviation companies bring?
Peculiar changes. In India, the biggest regulator for aviation is the Director General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, who controls the entire operational aspects of airline. So if you were to be in Air India, or if you were to be a SpiceJet, DGCA is the go-to person, and that DGCA will tell you what should be the aircraft, what should be the carrying capacity of the aircraft, what are the routes you can fly, and all those kind of regulations is what DGCA prescribes on you. In addition to DGCA, there are other regulators also. For example, the pricing of tickets, the economics of air travel. So there are different agencies which also take care of those kind of regulations. So in all, and then you have these airport authorities of India, which regulate what kind of airline, where you can fly, what kind of cost, all those kind of things.
Sure, sir. There is a question from Medha Bhardwaj. You have done a lot of postgraduate study, including a doctor's of law in media piracy. Can you tell us about that area of interest?
Yeah, so media piracy, when I was the general counsel of Disney, we were facing a lot of issue on piracy, because we were manufacturing consumer products like t-shirts, like toys and all that, and we wanted to open our own Disney stores. And then we were also distributing a lot of films on CDs, which was prone to piracy. So one of the things which was asked by our managing director is, we are very high on intellectual property. Our products are recognized by the characters that we deal with. How can we stop piracy? So that was a very short but a big question. And the big question was that give me some problem areas. So, typically you will make a white paper, and then that white paper goes to the managing director and he says, yes, well and good. But I did not stop there. I said, this is a problem statement. What is the solution that I can provide, or I can think of, or what is happening in developed markets to curtail piracy? And that is exactly how I did my research, that this is a problem statement for India on piracy, various parameters. What are the other countries, what are they doing, and what India should do? And that is how I developed my synopsis, and I got my PhD. So it is thinking about a problem, but not about the problem, but about doing a research, how that problem can be solved.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very fascinating. And I believe I speak for everyone in the behalf of audience when I say that we have all learned so much from you, sir, today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harshita, for inviting me. And it's been a wonderful pleasure. But next time, for sure, we'll see you at the campus.
Yes, sir. Sure. Very sure. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all the other participants for joining us today. Stay tuned for other sessions.
Thank you.
So with that, guys, we'll be ending today's session. You can stay on for tomorrow. We'll be having a blast tomorrow as well. Thank you so much.